A very good evening to you all and welcome to round number 4 of the ASR Supercars Championship for season 2024. Of course, the first of the Gen 3 era and the second time that the Bend Motorsport Park in successive years has been on the ASR calendar. First time last year, first time it had a sprint component to it, so 3 15-lap races, and that is the same format for tonight. But unlike last year, this year has a little bit of a twist, because of course the one new thing this year with the sprint race format is that top half inversion in race number 2. So depending on how many drivers are here tonight, that middle position in the standings at the end of race 1 will be very, very coveted, because it means you start on pole position for the second race of the night. And Rody, it was a successful format at Winton this year for the first round. We're repeating the format again this round. What do we expect to see after development series? We're here a little over a week ago.
Good evening to everybody watching along at home first, or say good evening if you're doing this from the other side of the world, which is an evening for you. Good, whatever it is for you. Yeah, it should be some really interesting racing based off of how Supercars tackled Winton with the same format a few months ago, but also, yes, how Dev Series went at the Bend last week. Much the same format as it has been in the successive rounds as well. And yeah, it threw up some interesting strategy plays. I'll be honest, I'm blanking on half of it because I was in it and I was at the back end of it and I was busy trying to recover from poor efforts. But you were there watching it all and you've got a better say of it than I do.
Yeah, I do. And there was a few little things to come out of that. And the main one is down at turn number 6. It is one of the tightest corners on the ASR Supercars calendar. It takes a bit of time to get used to because the approach is very, very wide. But on lap number 1, going down into that turn, sometimes 2 and 3 wide, it narrows up very, very quickly. And that's the main pinch point here at this circuit. So turn number 1 is not too bad because the main passing zone there, but it will allow cars to run side by side and there's plenty of runoff. There is plenty of runoff at turn 6, but it narrows up quite quickly on the exit as well, as it sort of cuts the main Supercars circuit that they use in real life in half and comes on the opposite side, so not having to go through that big long sequence of 3 or 4 apex right-hand corners on the international layout. So one of those things is new, and it seems to produce some really good sprint racing, which is why the West layout is the one that has been selected. So if we actually have a few moments here, what we are going to do is go and have a look at our track overview, just so you can see what this layout is if you've not seen it before. If you weren't tuned in for 12 months ago, it was of course round 6. This year it's round number 4. And one of the newest facilities in the country, just outside of Tailem Bend, not too far out of Tailem Bend, on the highway heading back towards Victoria. And it's a big circuit. There's a lot of layouts here. There's 4 different layouts total that are used for main racing, but this is the short one, the sprint layout here. So everything on the main Supercars layout from turns 1 to 5 and from turns 8 through to 12 are exactly the same as what you would normally get in the real world for Supercars. But then at turn 6, it's a little bit different. Instead of going to the left, the circuit goes a bit further on and turns right and then goes back around, comes on at turn 7. Otherwise, you'd normally turn left. You'd head up towards turn 7, 8, 9, 10, a big sort of 800 or 180 degree sort of big bowl loop, a small chicane, and then back onto a short chute that runs up towards another turn and brings you back onto where we join at turn number 7. So it's a short lap, it's a fast lap, it's one of the quicker circuits here, on the ASR calendar. The only circuits that are quicker than it are Barbagallo and Simmons Plains, which we aren't racing this year. But a minute 17 to a minute 20 a lap, Brody, it's not a bad sort of a lap time to have on a sprint race.
It is, yeah, it's not a bad lap at all, and it's a good variety of layouts you get to play with here. We talked about the sort of traditional Supercars layout that takes the left-hander before 6, and all it takes is it's a very minor change, couple hundred meters difference, a bit more than a couple hundred meters, but it's very much a different characteristic of a track. With the layout we're running, it's much more stop-start, especially through 6, 7, 8. A lot of this track is waiting to get on throttle, whereas when you're running the full layout, as I'm calling it for a supercar, it's a lot more of a loaded corner thing. You go from a track that feels, I suppose, a good analogy for it is the extended layout is a bit more like a Phillip Island, Whereas the West layout we're using tonight, and I actually did use a setup from this track for it, this is a lot more like a Winton.
Yeah, that's actually probably a good summary, actually. The long loaded corners through turn 7, 8, 9, sort of 10 on the international layout, puts a lot of load through the left-hand side tyres of the cars. Where here, because some of the corners are sort of, medium speed, turn 1, 2, 3 is a sort of slow medium speed corner, you're not sort of loading up the tyres too aggressively. Same can be said when you're going down through those sort of turn 7, 8, and 9 section. It's quite, low speed to medium speed. You're not putting a lot of load into the tyres. The two parts of the circuit we are going to put the main load is turn 5, which is the big high speed one that brings you onto the chute that heads down to turn 6. And when drivers are starting to push coming through the last corner, because you want to maximise your front straightaway speed, heading down towards turn number 1. So you'll see some drivers sliding. You'll see some drivers really trying to, brake a little bit early and then really floor the throttle once they get through the corner and push on down the front straight. One of the longest straights or main straights on the calendar. The only two straights that are longer than this one are, of course, Mountain Straight and Conrod Straight in Bathurst, which we'll see in Development Series this year. We'll see in Enduro Cup a bit later this year as well. So that's the track overview of where we're sitting at. We are just waiting for some drivers to get themselves together, but Roddy, it does give us a chance to have a bit more of an in-depth look at the driver standings coming into this evening. So if we bring it up after 3 rounds, now these of course are post any of the penalties that were handed out from any of the round indiscretions from the previous round, of which there were quite a few actually. The upshot there is Kurt Stenberg still has the lead of the championship, and he's got just over 100 points the margin over last year's champion Will Devenish. There has been a little bit of a shuffling at the top of the order there with Walker and Turra not too far behind, but Devenish, they're still less than 100 points behind, but very, very close together. Green and Redmond pretty close, and then it gets a lot closer as we go down there. You can see Egmanis, Ross and Cox bringing up the outside of the top 10, so there's a fair bit there. And as we go over the page and have a look at 11 through 20, you can see it's really, really tight. So effectively from 8th with Egmanis on about 350 odd points, all the way down to even to Lockie Burke, who's there on 294 points. That's a better part of only 60 points. So let's just call it about 75 points the difference between 8th and 20th. It seems like a lot, but when it covers, the better part of 13 drivers, Roadie, it's not a lot at all.
Oh, and it keeps going past there. You go down to Foley in 21st, Leonard in 22nd, Speck in 23rd. I'm just looking at the master list, and yeah, there are very tight gaps most of the way down. It's only Kane Gray, who's been a sub for the Beyond team this year, is the furthest back on that list at 225. But yeah, outside of the lead group, there is a very tight spread across the midfield. It's really only Kurt who's breaking away, with Devenish actually ended up picking up a pair of wins through penalties at the last round. So he has now won this season, but he doesn't, he didn't get a trophy for it. He didn't get to stay on the podium, so he's going to have to work on that for the rest of the season, but he has at least got wins this year. And then, Walker, Walker's trying to pull away, but Tara's keeping him very honest right now.
Yeah, he certainly is. So Walker has had a little bit of a bit of an interesting start to the season. He's been in the top sort of positions, but it came a little bit unglued for him at Hamilton. He was at the front of the queue when the safety cars came out, and I personally think missed a bit of a trick to come in when everybody else had came in, and then ended up having to stop under, in a not ideal situation, and ended up finishing well down the order. So that's dropped him quite substantially behind Stenny, who was behind him anyway, partway through that race or that round. It's allowed others to take over, and you're right about Will. He did inherit those wins because of some of the safety car problems that people jumped when they shouldn't have jumped. And you never want to be inheriting wins that way. You prefer to drive it on track and do the talking on the track. But you've got to take those points when they fall your way as well, when others fall foul of the rules sometimes.
Absolutely. The other thing I'm going to just quickly note, and I'm going to keep mentioning it while he stays relevant in the points sheet, but for somebody who's retired and is in the reserve driver slot, Lewis Wedding still is sitting up there in 7th, and he is here to get in tonight, so he might go better than that yet again. But for somebody who is pretty convinced that he's past it, His performances are saying otherwise. Granted, 13th in race 2 at Hamilton wasn't quite up to scratch, but he's been top 7 all other appearances he's made so far this season. He's going to do a bit of work to try and keep that up tonight, but for somebody who's not meant to be here, he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's right. And is substituting again tonight, we should point out as well.
Yes.
Luke Rosella called away at short notice, so he'll be filling that seat there, Lewis, for tonight. And as we go if we go back over the page again, interesting to point out, so Luke Newing has only done 2 of the opening 3 rounds, but sits there 16th with 300 points. He is now a full-time entrant, and that's why he's got his name there for SES Satellite Racing. He is now officially a full-time entrant in the series. And likewise, we will be seeing Luke Speck also for SES Satellite Racing coming into the picture as of round number 5, which is only 2 weeks away. It's a shorter turnaround this little time period, so not like the 3-week block we normally run. It's only a 2-week block. And he will be with us for Barbagallo in 2 weeks' time. So he's going to be doing double duty in both development series and in supercars in consecutive weeks. So good to see some drivers wanting to make that step up from the development series already. Let's go over the page and have a look here at the team's point standing. So it's very tight at the top. There's only 9 points between BWT Pixel Sim Sports and CRE Engineering. So, and even if you throw a blanket over it too, you could even go back to Sideways Esport Light. So when you look at that there is only 17 points covering the top 3 teams. So that's probably the closest start to a series from a team's point of view we've had in quite some time, Rhodey, and it doesn't stop there because you only got to look down the order and see that, CRE Anson, Sideways Esport Dark, PBF Race Engineering, despite the fact they've only had 1 car here most weeks, there's 45 points separating those 3 teams as well, but definitely at the top, tightest start to a team's championship that I can recall for some time.
Absolutely, and it's purely down to it's very much, I suppose, a similar thing to what we had back into last year. It's Pixel being helped this year very much officially sort of in the plans, whereas last year it was purely just the circumstances of the occasion. This year they've been able to jump in at the start of the year with Luke Rosella in the team, but he's only made the 1 appearance so far this season. And the way things are looking, we might not see him too much more, but we can get into that later. But yeah, it's very much been the work of Brendan Ross and Lewis Wedding, and Brendan Ross has been having a pretty good season. Lewis Wedding, better season than I think as I said earlier, better season than he should be having, a better season than he thought he'd be having, because he thought he'd be sitting on the sidelines for most of it. And then, ever dependable. Maybe not quite the strong performance, but Will's 2 penalty-assisted wins have helped in the team standings as well. It's kept Will and Termo in the fight, and this is what the battle was last year for teams, and it went down to the last round. And the way things are going right now, that's probably going to stay intact as well. And even if it's Lewis in the car the rest of the year, or whether they have somebody else jump in as a full-time, I don't know where they're looking for that right now. But if Lewis is in the car the rest of the season, his pace based off the first few rounds is enough that this could still be a fight that does go down to the final race again.
Yeah, that's right. And look, there's 2 key differences from last year to this year that we probably need to make sure people remind themselves of. So last year, CRE Engineering was well out in front before Luke Rosella arrived on the scene at round 6. At this track last year is where he came back into the fold, and that's when Pixel started to overhaul CRE Engineering and take it down to the final round. So that was a point of difference from last year. The big point of difference this year as well is that it hasn't been smooth sailing. These Gen 3 cars have definitely thrown up their fair share of differences. We've seen all those drivers sort of struggled to come to grips. Devonish has had some odd nights. Termo's had some odd nights. Ross has had some really odd nights. The one consistent one seems to be Lewis, as you said before. In all the appearances that he's made so far, he's done remarkably well to keep that finishing record going. As you said, it's for the 3 out of the 5 races he's contested, a 5th, a 4th, a 7th, and another 4th, and the 13th in the second race at Hamilton. So he's done quite well to hold up the fort there. And then the only other one was for Rosella. He took the 2 race wins at Albert Park. So that's where all that's gone. So it is there are a few differences from this year to last year rather, that people need to be aware of, that's sort of changed how that team's championship dynamic looks, but it's still a long way to go, but just a bit of contrast compared to what was this year and what was last year. All right, we're not too far away from qualifying. Just waiting on one or two little things to get sorted, and we will be ready to go. We're going to let we've actually let the server just tick over manually all by itself tonight. And the reason we've done that, there are a few drivers that have had a couple of game issues. There have been some things that have come up unexpectedly this year, Rhodey, especially with the Gen 3 cars being a bit of a different build compared to previous years. This track as well, being one of the newest circuits on the calendar, does still need a little bit of work to get it up to full 100% standard, but it is at a standard where it can be driven by the majority. So we're waiting to see whether or not a couple of drivers will make it back in. Looks like one has, and then the minute we get one, another one disappears. So and we have seen a few drivers with some internet trouble tonight as well, and some PC trouble. So not the best of starts to proceedings, but hopefully not too far away from getting underway here, as we see a bunch of drivers just get themselves into a little bit of a pickle, and looks like we might be in a bit more of a holding pattern here, Rhodey.
I'd say so. Yeah, I can see a few guys that haven't got back in yet, and it's just one of those things we're going to run into, especially in the first year of running these cars, and also the second year running. I think the second or third year had this track, but it's one of those things where this is going to be something we're going to run into a couple of times here. The Bend is the biggest permanent racetrack in terms of square footage. On the track. It's also the longest on the calendar, and the longest if you take the full layout into consideration. It's the longest track in Australia. But it takes up the biggest square footage, and that's really detail is one thing, and there's not a lot of detail out here. We're in the middle of more or less the outback, not quite the outback. It's pretty close. It's pretty brown out here. But it's really just more the amount of coverage that we're working with, and that as it's one complete track, all three layouts exist in the one file, and then also the cars. And I've said this I was talking with some guys on, I think it was Wednesday After Social series, and we're not necessarily mincing any words here when we're saying that these are the most graphically complex cars we've ever thrown out as a series. The only thing that would maybe come close is some of the stuff we did back with the EEC GT3 and LMP2 cars, but they were probably a little bit better optimized, and ultimately they came from games that weren't AMS and didn't have AMS's upper ceiling that they could work with. They would have been designed for originally something like RF1 or maybe GTR2. They would have been designed to a slightly smaller ceiling than we have in AMS, and you can run higher levels in AMS like we're currently doing. It's just balancing between what we'd like to see and what the game, or more importantly, what people's computers will let us run. So this is one track we're probably going to run some issues. The other one, at least from just amount of pixels loaded, is potentially going to be Bathurst, but we've had Bathurst for a few years now. We're going to work that down, and Bathurst is far enough away from now that those that are in the series will know that we've already done some work on trying to optimize these cars. That isn't a finalized project. There's still a bit more work going on, and that we work going across the season as we pick up new technologies and whatever else, and as we learn our way through it. But yeah, Bathurst is another possibility. But again, at least for the sake of Gen 3, it's Enduro Cup. So the grid is more or less probably going to end up being smaller, because you've got to take all the drivers that are eligible and put them into basically half the number as they share a car. But yeah, it's one of the things we're going to run into. The other thing that will be interesting as well is next round is at Barbagallo. I know for Dev Series there is a dusk race planned, and I'm not sure if it's the same for Supercars, but if it is, that's something else where, not so for pixel count, but another thing that this game likes to throw hissies at, my game loves to throw hissies at as well. Anytime it wants to cast a shadow, it tends to get it very unhappy. And at night, there's a lot of shadows being cast. So we'll potentially see that down the line. But yeah, just a lot of teething troubles. But you get this when we're throwing the highest detailed cars we've ever put together as a league, with the biggest track by square footage in Australia.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And as I said before, one of the the newest facilities to be built in the country. I know there's been a lot of conjecture and talk about the new facility they're supposed to be building out at Avalon, but there was no funding in the state budget for that, even though, from what we understand, it's going to be built on private property anyway. So it defeats the purpose of why you think you would need to have a certain amount of funding put into place to serve something like that. But nonetheless, there wasn't anything for that in this year's Victorian state budget. So we wait to see what happens with that over the course of the next couple of years, I'd say. I'd almost probably put it to the point of shelving it, Rody. I think the rate that things are going, as we've got cars that are starting to organise themselves in pit lane now, so finally, as things start to get underway here, you start to see drivers are starting to make their way out onto the circuit. Because, of course, the big topic that everybody remembers from qualifying from years gone past, it is only 10 minutes. So it's very, very important. Get out there, get a lap done, get back in and put some new boots on, and off you go again. Now, the only driver that we are missing is usually the driver that is parked at the head of the queue most days, Rody, and that, of course, is Daniel Cox. He's actually trying to fight some internet dramas at the moment, and he is not the first man out onto the circuit. Is actually a substitute driver that is the first on the circuit this time around, which is Scott Murrell, who's taking over the 237 from Lockie Lock, who I think is just letting Noah Tara go through here at turn number 3. Yes, he is. Now, you might remember from Hamilton, there was a pretty substantial collision in race number 1 between Locke and Ross, which was actually down to a physical hardware failure of Locke's pedals, and they're still not 100%. So hence the substitute in tonight. 4 of them in the field tonight. A couple from Dev, and actually 3 from Dev, and Lewis Wedding for Luke Grozella.
Yeah, and that's ultimately a smart move in Lockie Locke's case. Is you want to make sure the pedals are 100% before you get back out on the track again. Like we said as a rule off of hardware issues in seasons gone past that, yeah, if you reckon you've got a hardware issue and you go out on track and you cause an issue, the penalties are going to be stacked on harder.
Yep.
And yeah, with where they're at as a team, they're not necessarily competing for the team championship right now, but all the points matter, and it's much better to get someone like Scott Murrell, who's got a lot of Supercars experience actually this year. He's done a lot of fill-in work for CRE, but it's going to get him in the car as well.
That's right. Just noticed the Pixel guys have gone out together, so I guess Lewis will be giving Rossi a tow around the circuit to try and boost some lap time here. We'll see what happens, but we'll go on board with Noah Tara here. So down into a very heavy braking zone, turn number 1. Use the inside curb there to help turn the car, because you need to track sacrifice a little bit to open up turn 2. And then it's a really difficult approach for turn 3, because ideally you want to be to the left to sweep in for the turn, but the momentum naturally carries you to the right anyway, so you have to brake. Turn 4 is inconsequential. It basically doesn't exist. High speed, turn 5. Now normally you would keep the car out to the right for turn 6, but for this time you have to move it all the way back to the left, because the next circuit corner goes right on this shorter layout, so very big pinch point there. Through 7. Actually track sacrificed on the left-hand side to open up the next corner at 8. Some drivers are using all the road and then narrowing their approach to turn number 8. So a couple of different schools of thought, whatever makes the pace for you. Through 9 and 10, down to another tight corner on the circuit. This one's a right-hander. This one goes a little bit more than 90 degrees. It's almost like the inverse of Winton Motor Raceway's turn 10. That's turn 11 on this circuit. And this is the corner I was saying, if you can brake a little bit earlier and square your exit up nicely, you can floor the throttle out of the corner and get good straightaway speed. And if you know a Tara, you punch out a 17.0, which is a pretty handy lap, considering I think the best times I saw in practice were in the high 16s.
Yeah, I think 16.8 might have been the best that I've seen, maybe 16.7. So yeah, for a first lap, that's not bad at all. They're going to come back, bring the time back down as he goes on as well. But he's staying up there for, well, actually longer than I thought, because staying back at a time, and it is slower than Noah Tara. But that is just the first lap. That
is the first laps in the books, and it's only about what was it? You see there, just over a tenth of a second slower compared to Tara. So good opening benchmark, as a few drivers are still setting some times there. One of the drivers has unfortunately dropped out of the server, which is Alex Kiddis, so starting from the rear of the grid for this one, having not set a time. We're looking at Zach Brown here in the pixelated elf Autosport Camaro. The Mustangs outnumber the Camaros, I think, this year, so they tried to square the ledger. 10th for Brown. And one person I'm noticing going quite quickly here is Brenton Foley. He's got 2 green boxes next to his name in the opening 2 sectors, although he's just locked up going into turn 11 there on his way to the final corner now. And this is his second flying lap, so it is 17.5. He was up on a PB and he was up on the pole time. I think he's going to lose a bit of time here, and he does. He loses time in the last sector, but he was up on the pole sitter's time all the way to the second sector split, just threw it away in third sector.
I'd be interested to know, actually, because I've got a little bit of an inkling as to where people are going with setup directions. I know that it's very much the standard thing where half the grid, just by default of being CRE, are probably on some derivative of a CRE setup. But Higo's been dabbling in some stuff tonight, some dark magic, truly. He's found a file in his Bend setup files that wasn't from a supercar that applied to a supercar. So we still don't know where that we'll never know where that came from.
Whoops, speaker Higo.
Speaker
Higo, we just had a pirouette behind one of the substitutes, Ethan Knight. So you've put the Mozza on him already, Roddy?
I have, yeah. But what I was going into with that was I know he's passed that on to the SES drivers. I also know that was passed on, because I passed it on, to PBF. So potentially a better effect from where Foley's going. But I mean, if Higo's found himself a good setup, and I don't know, he doesn't know where he's plucked it out from, that might have something to do with it as well. But yeah, that's the sort of Foley pace we're used to seeing from years gone past. He hasn't quite adapted as well to Gen 3 as he probably would have liked to so far this year. But based off of that lap, things might be turning around.
Yeah, well, speaking of that lap, I'll tell you what, someone's going to be watching on right now is the person who's normally the pilot of this car, in Cam Rutledge, watching his good mate Darryl Callahan step into a supercar and punch out a time at the moment that's good enough for 6th place in the standings, and a half a second away from Wayne Walker, who's gone to the head of the queue now, only less than 300ths of a second ahead of Noah Tara. So it's tight at the top. Callahan doing a good job on substitute debut here as well. He is the best of the substitutes right now. The next best is Ethan Knight, 13th, and then you've got Scott Murrell, 21st, who's in the amped up racing by CRE Locky Lock Machine.
Yeah, that's a really good time so far for Callahan.
Locked the compression, locked the rears, and that'll be this lap over for him, and expecting him to be in the pits in the next few seconds and get a new set of boots and get going again, because he's only got 3.5 minutes. It's probably good enough for a lap, maybe 2 if he hurries.
Yeah, but that's so far, like, he's just been passed by Tim Redmond.
Yes.
So that's a really good time so far for Callahan, especially for where he's running normally puts him. He's
just lost another spot.
Yep.
And
okay.
that was to Green. So so Tony Green
coming up through. But yeah, even then, like, that's pretty good time considering the gaps to the leaders. It just shows how tight we are, and it is only a minute 16, minute 17 track, so it's no surprise that the gaps we're talking about are less than tenths of a second between cars. The same sort of things you see at Simmons, same sort of thing we see at Barbagallo. So yeah, it's going to be very tight to split hairs. This would be a really good track based on the splits we're seeing in qualifying to try and figure out a top 10 4, but we're not always doing a shootout tonight. But this would be a really good track for it, because the difference between being in the 10 and not being in the 10 is going to be tenths of a second.
Well, this man on screen here actually just jumped up 6 spots. Luke Newing went up to 6th place there, but he's just thrown and bowled wide down at the final at the start of the lap. So he'll probably struggle to get around for another lap. There are drivers coming around to start a flying lap. Steve Warwick's one of those. He's just had a little bit of a slide coming onto the main straight. That will slightly hamper his straightaway speed, but he'll have enough time on the board to get 2 laps in. Everybody else that's leaving the lane at the moment, you can see them all here. They're all leaving the lane, and good enough for 1. Oh, that's a bit of a... I was about to say, Steve's only bowled wide, but I did notice as well that Newing behind him actually cut straight across the pit lane blend line, and that's a big no-no. And I take it he was doing that to try and get out of the way of another car, but the onus is on you to stay and hold your line, and the other car on the circuit to see and avoid. So might be in a bit of trouble there.
Absolutely. Well, coming down to the last 2 minutes of the session, I see some guys already starting to get themselves set up for runs. I think Lewis Wedding is one. He's currently in 22nd. He's waiting for a gap.
Aidan Williams is another who was right behind him, and they're just down at the second last corner. So yeah, they're just looking for their own little bit of real estate on the circuit at the moment. So Williams now through the final corner, and you see here, this is the kind of gaps they're looking for. They're looking for a gap that's, close enough to the car in front to get a little bit of a tow and have an incentive to be a bit of a carrot for them, but not to be distracting. So those in the pits, Murrell and Warwick, and then Higginson is in the lane, but he's not going to have enough time to get around for another lap, so he's done.
Yeah, which for Higginson, he's currently outside.
He's 22nd.
22nd.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He's going to be targeting, well, there's 25 drivers here tonight, including Kiddis, who's not in the server at the moment. So that means that the 13th placed car in race number 1 will be the car that gets the pole. Actually, if Daniel Cox gets in, it'll still be 13th because it'll make 26, so it'll just even the ledger up a little bit. So we'll see what Higginson can do. If that'll probably be what he'll be targeting from a race sort of setup over the course of the first 15 lap encounter. So a couple of these drivers on screen here will get some more laps. So Foley will get another lap. Tara will get another lap. Burko behind him will get another lap, and so too will Stenberg. So he'll time it pretty well. Tara improves his time. So we're into the 16s now. Walker's into the 16s. Tara's into the 16s. And then Devonish has jumped Stenberg for third. And he's the first driver that's on a 17-0. I think Williams is just going to get another lap. Thrower had a bit of an awkward moment out of the final corner. And then who was the last car? I think it was Wedding that I think maybe just got around for another shot.
He that was millimetres in it, but he's good, which was lucky because he picked up a track cut in that lap, possibly to get around to it in time because he knew. But yeah, he's the last car on a lap here.
Yep, so he is, and he's down at the first couple of corners now as well. Williams is done, who's just spun ahead of him, so Lewis will go sailing on by. There he goes, and makes a little bit of time on that lap. Burko, I just noticed he's off the road there as well. Ross has finished up in 19th, so the sister car to this one hasn't been able to go quicker than 19th at the moment, 1.7 seconds off the pace. And cycling through, Collins is in 14th, 13th for Knight, so he really didn't advance too much. Callahan dropped down to 11th after all of that. And Stenberg's bowled away. He's had a moment off the final corner, so second to last corner. So he's going to start 4th alongside Devonish, who has also pulled the pin. Wedding's really the last driver on a lap at the moment. There's not going to be too many more improvements after this, I don't think. Hall, Ben Hall jumped up. He made good 6.5 tenths, so he moves up to 15th. And Wedding's time is good enough for... No, he lost time. Look at the split. There was nothing in it there. So he's going to start at 23rd on the same row of the grid as Peter Thrower. So the only real driver that improved after that one was Ben Hall, and moved himself up the order. But your pole will be Wayne Walker with a 16.689, so just under 2 tenths of a second ahead of Noah Turra. And then it was actually a good 2 tenths back to Devonish in third, and Stenberg a tenth behind him. Green and Newing, followed by Ryan Smith and Brenton Foley. Foley fractionally quicker than Redmond as well, so not much in that between them, and you can even put Zach Brown into that. That's a good showing from Brown too. Top 10 result for him, and all those drivers came along in the latter stages of qualifying and knocked Callahan down the order to 11th. So he was sitting pretty for a while there, Rhodey, but just couldn't better that 17.5, and if you had found a 10th, he would have gained 3 spots.
Absolutely, but at 7.5 for where he's sitting with his experience with these cars, that's pretty good running. Like same to Newing. I mean, Newing's been a sub, so he's got some experience to jump straight into his own car and be top 5, top 6. That's pretty good. And like generally pretty good performance from most. The only sort of people that are throwing me off there is Lewis Wedding, but he probably didn't get quite the lapping he wanted. I don't think Higa really got a representative time either, based on what I was seeing out of his car in practice. So there'll be a few guys that we'll definitely see coming up through the field. The other one as well, who will be starting off the back of the grid. I think he was already from memory, but missing qualifying doubles that down. Is Alex Kiddis as well. He's got some pace on board. I haven't seen much of it tonight, but he has got some pace on board, so he'll move his way up. But yeah, if it's anything like Winton, especially Winton for Dev Series, that scrap over what's going to be 13th place is probably going to be just as big as the scrap is over the lead.
Oh, yeah. No, I fully expect it too. And I mean, you can't keep some good drivers down either. There'll be some, Stenny would have been probably penciling in a front row start. So I expect him to have one of his trademark launches and move his way forward and be up there threatening the likes of Turra and Walker and Devonish for a race win. So we'll see how that pans out. But you're coming back to Alex Kiddis. I'm just going to go and have a look at practice times here just to see what sort of times that he'd actually managed to set. And I think the best time we saw out of him was a 17.570 and a best possible lap if you put all the sectors together of a 17.1. So, you mean if he's got some pace, he could have thrown himself in the mix for a top 10 starting position, which also would have meant, reasonably good position for the top half reversal as well. So there's still a few untold stories in this one, I think, Rody, is the short answer I think we're going to take out of this one. And it'll be interesting just to see how all of this pans out. Into a short warm-up session now. So not too much longer to go until we go racing. So if we have a bit of a look just to see what everybody is up to at the moment. So watching a few of the drivers. Now, just for viewers at home, you're used to us being on what we call our 3-week block. So that means we have a development series race, we have a Supercars round, and then we have a round off where we do other things and we don't do any broadcasting or racing. For rounds 4 and 5, it is back-to-back. It's like the start of the year when we had the opening round, which happened to be at Winton, and then there was no gap, and then it was straight on to Albert Park. So we had Dev Series Winton, Supercars Winton, and then Dev Series Albert Park, Supercars Albert Park with no gap in between. That's what we've got for round 4 and 5. So this is the second week of a 4-week period with back-to-back racing. So Dev Series last week and Supercars this week at the Bend, and the next 2 weeks it is Dev Series followed by Supercars at Barbagallo Raceway. And that's just by virtue of how things have worked out with the calendar, trying to avoid some real-life events, and how that also creates a couple of gaps for some of our events a bit later on in the year. So the Enduro Cup for one, Sandown and Bathurst, just needs a little bit of a hole to slot into, and most of that's driven, unfortunately, by where Bathurst falls IRL. And the hard part for us was the date of the Sandown 500 IRL changed to a week earlier, so we also had to shift the round a week earlier to compensate, so we didn't end up with a conflict, because originally our date for our Sandown 500 was going to be a week before, and then they moved it a week forward and caused a bit of a conflict, so we did have to change that around. So these are the reasons why we end up with some back-to-back situations every now and again.
Absolutely. I was just trying to try and get a comparison lined up, but I haven't. I think he's lagging out or something, but I haven't quite got Darren Logan in the grid. But what I was going to make a point of is we've got a few new liveries here tonight, but the one I do want to make point of before we start racing is the livery of the new SES Satellite Racing number 17 Ford Mustang, and I'm going to make a point of making sure we will see it distinctively before we start racing.
Well, we have got it on screen right now.
From a distance, if you look at it from a distance, actually he's just come out of pits now, so you can actually, if you got your both monitors set up now, you can switch between the two. But if you look at Luke Newing's car and you look at Darren Lognan's car, from a distance they're pretty close. I think I used the example earlier, and it wasn't to denigrate on the work that Luke Newing had commissioned for him and by the work that Hayden Cuppett did in painting it, but Luke Newing's car looks like Darren Lognan's car halfway through.
Yeah, well, you're right. So Loughnan's car's got a lot more white. That's the important bit that I can see. There's a lot more white on the side, so it's easy to identify, and you can see that there's a bit more hues on the bonnet that sort of go up and over the down the pillars of the bonnet where the body lines are, and up over the top of the roof as well, where Newing's a bit more blue base and a bit more blue over the top. So, but yes, at a distance, if you were standing at the circuit and this was real life, and you were squinting into the distance, you would struggle to pick both of them out.
Exactly. So it's there's enough detail close up that they are distinct cars and they are going for different things. Obviously, the Darren's car is going for a bit of that sort of the Nerf Vortex theme. That's why hence Vortex Racing, because the Vortex is the name for the Nerf throwing football. As opposed to a Newing, where I got a bit of a dig out because I was looking at the side of him and thought, oh, is this trying to be a DJR car because I saw the 17 and the white number board? And no. This is actually based off of a car that his dad used to race, which is why it's got the 90s-esque looking number boards, because this car was raced, or the livery was raced in the 90s. So that's why the livery is what it is. And they're both distinct cars. There's enough distinct that we're not going to have any issues of. It's not like, say, Pixel cars where you can't tell them apart. There is enough distinct things. It's just that they're both cars with basically the same blue and enough white detail that from a distance you're going to struggle. So we'll get there, and I don't know, maybe an alt livery down the further in the year, Newing might go something completely different rather than having a car that closely matches Darren's in this case. But yeah, we're probably going to have a bit of a struggle in the first few races just picking them apart because there are differences, but from a distance, they do blur a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, yes, I thought the same thing as you. Being a 17, big 17 number on the side, it sort of had reminiscence for me of just that size of the 17 was almost like Ford Sierra days. When the number was that big on the side of a car. But yes, coming back to your point as well. I mean, from last year, we all know you couldn't tell the Pixel cars apart, Rady, but it's a little bit of a different case this year. I think we can safely say.
The other thing I'll make a note of just quickly extra deliveries as well is no changes as such, but they are back to their standard livery. So SES Dark is now back in the dark cars, and SES Light is now back in the light cars, as opposed to last round where they did the opposite. But yes, I'll point out the rest of the special liveries as we get to the grid, because there are a few others that have popped in for the round.
Yes, no, that's exactly right. So there have been a few drivers, and the big one I think that we've noticed as well is Nathan Higginson's Monster Energy one, which is actually it's quite a nice job. It looks really, really good. Body suits the body lines of the car really well.
It is, yeah, and I believe, which I'll make note of, I believe Brett Schelling might have had a say in that livery as well. I know that he's done some painting for Higo for his work with the AMSMA mod, and he's a really good painter, Brett. He's not only is the accuracy there, the output rate, it far exceeds my output rate. I've been seeing just batches of shells of supercar liveries coming out of the woodwork, just being fired out left, right, and center. So really, really good at his job. And from what I understand, this isn't the only livery that he's doing for Higo this year. Higo did tease a redheads livery. I don't know. Maybe we get to see Beth back in the car for that one, given that Beth is a redhead.
Oh God!
But
now you're drawing a long queue there, a long bow there. I think, Rody.
But that's another livery that Higo's got planned to come out with at some point in the year as well. And I think Higo might have started that one himself, but from what I understand, Brett might have his hands on the finishing touches for that one as well.
Yes, no, I did see the
livery by Brett Schelling.
I did see the early markings of the Redheads livery as well. I mean, for those that follow the broadcast religiously, you remember last year as well, or sorry, last round. SES Light went dark and SES Dark went light. So, they're just screwing with us now, I think, aren't they, Ray?
Well, yeah, they gave us a couple of rounds to get comfortable. I say a couple, they gave us 2 rounds to get comfortable with the cars as they were. And then once we're comfortable, they changed it. And we're like, no, that's all right, we can adapt. And then they've changed it back on us again. So I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the also got playing across the year going to switch around. I know the only livery that I know that is set in stone to be a certain thing that isn't going to be, there isn't going to be a complete guesstimation is I know that, and somewhat oddly, but generally when you put liveries in as the alts go, you number them up as you put them in. So the alt 1 will be the earliest one you put in, alt 2, alt 3.
Mm-hmm.
I make the point because the livery that Ryan Smith ran last round was his alt 2, because he's one of 2 drivers so far this season that have applied for and have been given approval to run an alternate number at some point. So we saw Will Devenish running number 1 at the start of the season. He also planning on running at the last round, from what I understand. Otherwise, he's running number 15. Later in the year, Ryan Smith does have plans to run the number 911, which does have a personal significance to him, and that's why he'll be running it at some point. I think it's probably going to be around retro round. I think it's when he's planning on running it. But otherwise, absolutely, I wouldn't be surprised. And like the throughput that Hayden Cupboard's putting out for the SES team, there's a lot of cars. There's a lot of liveries putting out between Supercars and Dev Series. I wouldn't be surprised if, he does lean into this a little bit and he does decide to, maybe if they've got a slot free that they're doing nothing for, he decides to do something different again, just to screw with us a little bit.
Yes, no, I agree. Just waiting on one more driver and then we'll be set to go. So, I guess I'm not sure if we can reflect a little bit on what happened here last year, Ruddy, because it's a different sort of car and different sort of situation. But it was a dominant situation last year with Rosella taking all 3 of the race wins, but that was all progressive from race 1 to race 2 and race 2 to race 3. So I guess we really probably can't call it this year.
Not as easily, especially with the splits in qualifying for type. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see a top 4. Probably a safe bet off qualifying. The top 4, top 5 maybe is going to stay intact. They might rearrange within themselves, but that cluster will stay together. I think the big battle is going to be that 5th, 6th, 7th with Anthony Green. I think it might have been Brap up there. I know Newing was up there. There was a cluster of SES cars. yeah, I expect that is where we're going to start to see the racing happen. But very much, even if that top 4 pull away, they're going to be the bottom 4 in the inverse, and they're going to put the work to get through the field. And the time is enough, probably over the length of a race, that they could get through. But the other thing that's going to play into this is strategy and where they go for tires and what tire compound they choose to start on. Basically the options where we're going for this is you are going to be it's going to be a no-stop race. That said, safety car in the middle, it doesn't hurt to pick up a new set of soft tires. But generally, if this is a lights flag green, it's going to be either a soft and conserve or a hard and push.
Yes.
So that's potentially going to play into it for more so than this race. It's going to play into it for the reverse grid, because people it depends on what strategy they've gone. They might want to be able to push early, which they can't do as easily on a hard tire. But at the same time, if they push early on that soft tire, they're going to run out of life at the back end, and they'll happily be able to get through the guys that they're stuck behind in the reverse grid, but they won't be able to make that final push at the back end to deal with the rest of the guys that have come through with them. So, Will Devonish, Noah Tara, Kurt Stenberg, and Wayne Walker. One of the 4 of them could end up on softs, or could be on softs, and the rest could be on hards, and could make the break early, but then suffer at the back end, or vice versa. And you get stuck behind cars because they're also running hard tires, and they're not pushing as hard as you are. But then you've got the strength at the back end to try and make some last gasp move for the win.
Yes, that's right. Ready and waiting for racing to get underway now, it looks like. So everybody is, I think just about everybody's assembled, I think, from memory. And one of those things, I think, that just takes a bit of time to get everything going again. As I said, I've actually just been sort of apologising to drivers in the chat, just saying, look, we're really sorry for some of the unexpected issues we've had tonight. We had a little bit of this last year with the track, but we didn't quite have everything. We didn't quite have everything 100% right, but the Gen 3, as you said, these are some of the most complicated cars we've built, so it just means there's still a little bit work to be done. And we are ready to roll, I think, here as well. So ready, time to hit the grid.
Alrighty, starting from pole, and this one is Wayne Walker, the first of the 2 Bend Motorsport cars here tonight. They actually more or less bookend the field, but we'll get to Alex Kiddis later on down the line. Second is Noah Tara for Amped Up Racing by CRE, bringing an alt livery out this time with a very aggressively modal themed car, very sort of the NASCAR sponsorship style of just making the logo so big that you can't miss it. Third is Will Devonish behind the wheel of the CRE Engineering number 15 Mustang. Good start for him. It's a good qualifying result for him so far tonight. And starting alongside him will be Kurt Stenberg. Big rivalry between the pair of them over the last few years. So Kurt Stenberg, a bit of work to do, probably one of the first times he's not been on the front row so far this year. Fifth is Anthony Green, the first of the SES cars, back in the white-based SES Light number 10. With Luke Newing jumping in for the first time in a full-time entry for SES Satellite Racing. That'll be a 2-car team in the next few rounds as well. Seventh is Ryan Smith for SES Dark, back in the black base livery, with Brenton Foley in 8th, one of only 2 PBF cars here tonight, unfortunately. Ninth is Tim Redmond, the first, and I think potentially only one of 2 Beyond Racing cars here tonight as well, so he's in the number 43 Mustang. With Zach Brown, the best of the Pixel cars, excited of Motorsport number 2, starting from inside the top 10. 11th is Daryl Callahan filling in for Cam Rutledge in the number 0150 Anson Motorsport Camaro, with Dakota Sigmanis in 12th, the second of the Sierra Engineering Mustangs. 13th is Ethan Knight filling in for Dane Liccardo at SES Team Dark, with Rory Collins in 14th, the other SES Light Mustang. 15th is Ben Hall behind the wheel of that Q Racing Monster Truck Mustang, with Aidan Williams back again behind the wheel of the Rusties Williams Racing number 33. 17th is Steve Burko for C7 Satellite. He's got a bit of work to do to get up the grid, as does Darren Lognan, starting from 18th for the Full Racing Team. 19th is Brendan Ross for BWT Pixel Sim Sports, with Steve Warwick in 20th is the other Pixel car on the grid. 21st is Nathan Higginson in that Monster Mustang, with Lewis Wedding subbing in 22nd. Pete Thrower starting 23rd. Alex Kiddis is out of 24th. And starting from the back of the grid is Daniel Cox for Sierra Anson Motorsport.
And a funny feeling we may have lost Scott Murrell just at the turn of the thing as well.
Yes.
So unfortunately, I've missed that one. And looks like there's a little bit of drama there still to go. So here we go. It is race number 8 of the season proper. The 2024 ASR Supercars Championship is now officially underway, finally, after waiting for a while. And it's a good start from Walker, got the whole shot, and also a good start from Stenberg behind as well, who's now very quickly over the left rear quarter panel of Noah Turra, but switches sides, drops back in behind a fast starting Green, who somehow at the moment manages to move up to second spot. So that's a good move from the third row of the grid, now up into P2. Stenberg going with him. There he is down the inside of Turra at turn number 3. Gets that move done. And then behind him, Devonish has had one of his customary tardy starts, already down to 4th and being threatened by Foley, who's had a really good launch as well.
Absolutely, yeah, down to 5th, Will Devonish now, and you're right, Foley and Redmond both there. I will commend the field. It's been a pretty clean run so far, but I just see one car off in the background somewhere. But yeah, very good run in the opening lap. I know Dev Series were throwing safety cars by this point.
Yep.
But yeah, really good run by the field as they stream through, and actually Will Devonish being able to pull away slightly now. Actually, Foley as well getting through on Tim Redmond, so starting to straighten out into a single line.
Yep, and everybody through the very, very important turn number 6, the tight turn 6. So we're safety car free, unlike development series last week. Egmanis down the inside very quickly there as well of Tim Redmond, seizes the opportunity at turn number 11, and now he's got the inside line for the next corner, which goes to the left. So Redmond will just have to concede late there, had to think about really hard and pull the trigger. And just slot back in behind Egmanis. There was no point trying to stay on the outside there, but he actually got a pretty reasonable exit out of this final corner, and Egmanis will have to leave him a little bit of room down the inside here at turn number 1, and he does. And this is a good exchange. You can run side by side through here, through the right-hand corner, through the left-hand corner, and through the right-hand corner again. And then the problem is, as you drive up the hill, the next corner goes to the right. It's a little kink, as we said. It's an inconsequential corner, but then the next corner goes left, and you have to decide very quickly if you want to pull back in behind, because usually it's a one-line groove, and that time Termo had to concede. Good move from Redmond, good opportunity to stay there, and then you see up the inside there, Termo not giving it up. So great side-by-side racing. But that's what I was saying. Some parts of this track you can run side by side, and if you can stay in position, you'll end up with the advantage on the other side after about 4 or 5 turns.
Absolutely. Outside of, we mentioned earlier, the sort of the peak speed spots, turn 5 and the last corner, they're the only really 2 corners where you can't easily get away with running too wide, but the rest of the track is more than wide enough for it. The racing line, more than wide enough for it. Foley gone for a bit of an over-under on himself there and ended up actually giving the spot up to Devonish just ahead. As Devonish now trying to get back into the train of that top 4. And speaking of that top 4, Anthony Green's very comfortable up there in second.
Yeah, he's tracking along quite nicely as well. Turra with a fastest lap of the race last time around. Purple first sector, 19.7, the current best lap time, but it's only fractionally slower than the race leader at the moment, so no real advantage gained. Green went very wide at turn number 1, I think, and has coughed up a couple of spots, and now he's under siege. It's almost 3 wide into turn number 3, with Stenberg and Devonish both trying to fight each other and now trying to fight Green. And I was about to say, Devonish had to concede ground there, because I thought he was going to use Green's car as a pick, but it didn't quite pay off for him. And now down the inside here, no, not quite. I actually had to pull up really early, Green. That's cost him time and spots, having to pull up from the dirty side of the road.
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe Green feels he's getting a bit swamped at this point. I will say him running wide at 1 was not his fault. He did get contact in the rear from Kurt Stenberg, while Stenberg was dropping back to redress that.
Okay, there you go. That answers that.
But yeah, what it's done is put Stenberg back. It's put
Egmanis behind. What did he do? Did he get a touch? Something not quite right there, because he was all of a sudden fishtailing violently from left to right. I'm not sure if he got a little bit of the grass. He's going to go plummeting down the order here. Look at all this train, this angry choo-choo train going right past. He's going to come on behind Darren Loughnane, and that is all the way down in, what's that, second to last.
24th. Yeah, that's a big drop, and
that's a big drop.
Whether you go back and have a look,
whether you have a replay here on our Paint Doctor replay, I think he did this all on his own.
Yeah, he did. He just
he's done it all on his own.
whether he caught wheel spin, changing gear,
Oh.
or like, really odd place to catch a slide, but it flicked it one way. I'm guessing to move out of the train, and just the rear grip wasn't there. I don't know. That was really odd, but yeah, he had no assistance in that. It was all by himself.
Yeah, I think it was just, as you said, I think you could see he had a little bit of a slide coming through turn 10, and almost like he went to correct it, and then at the gear change, then the car, it got away from him, and then he was just basically trying to catch the car and trying to keep it straight, and it didn't quite land for him. Talk of ups and down stories, Brendan Ross had moved himself up to about 19th, I think it was, and he's now found himself all the way down to 24th, so very strange goings on there for BWT Pixel Sim Sport. Conversely, the sister car, Lewis Wedding, currently up on 8th in 18th behind the satellite team entry of Zach Brown there as well. So not been a great start for the Pixel stables. After Brown's top 10 starting place, he's down to 17th, and the Pixel guys haven't made too much advancement.
I've just figured out exactly what happened to Ross as well, because that was curious. I went back to have a look, and he was getting a nice little bump draft down the straight from his teammate, and in the end, they were having a nice little train of Pixel cars. He was too late on the brakes and nearly ended up skewering straight into Zach Brown, pulled off to the left to avoid him as to the long way around turn 1.
I was about to say there's a yellow flag at the first corner, which is for Luke Newing, who's retired from this race now. I'm not sure what's happened to him. We might try and catch a replay of that one in the next few moments. So actually, yes, we'll go to that replay now. So let's have a look at that. Thanks to the paint doctor. And let's have a look at what happened to Luke Newing. So down the chute here into turn number 1. And I've got a funny feeling he might have been all on his own. And I think that might be a... that's either a hardware failure or a money shift of some sort, I think there, Rody.
That is a money shift. I can hear little licks of flame out of the back of that car. So yes, he is popped in, which easy enough to do. It's a big stop from what is the longest, definitely the longest front straight on the calendar. You get quite a bit of speed up, and it's quite a long braking zone through one. And yeah, just again all by himself, wasn't really threatened by anyone.
Green! Well, geez, what a send from Green, but he couldn't pull that one up. There was no way that was going to come off. That was happening in the background. We were just watching Stenberg lead a nice little train of cars from fourth on back, and then all of a sudden, Green appeared on the scene at a vast rate of knots and did a superb job to try and avoid it, but it was great evasive action from, I think it was Redmond, to see him coming and just avoid the potential contact there. Again, another paint doctor replay. This one's worth the money. We were watching the front car in this group. Let's pick it up. So you can see here he was 4 cars behind. It was fourth car in the row behind here, and then pulled out to the side. Way too late on brakes. Way too much speed. Checked the gap. Redmond saw him coming. Great situational awareness. And the number, what's that? The number 10 goes for a wild ride into the runoff area.
I will say credit to Tim. Obviously, he opened the steering and let him through, but also credit to Green, who was trying to knock the speed off, but didn't let the car get into a big slide, because if he was sliding sideways through that, he was more likely to collect the car and definitely more likely to collect Tim. So he kept the car very much in a straight line as he went through there, which I suppose also was the thought of mind of, I have to make this gap, I have to do a certain speed to make this gap. So he probably let off the brake a little bit so that he could shoot through that gap and make sure he was clear of the traffic through, and then try to slow down the car and catch it.
Yeah, that's right.
So good driving all round.
Absolutely. Steve Warwick's about to be passed by Lewis Wedding here. There he goes, gets that job done. That moves him up into 14th, so that's 1 spot away from the front row start and a pole position start for the next race. And we are halfway through this opening race here, and there's the carrot just going over the hill. It's Ethan Knight in Dane Licardo's machine for this round that Lewis Wedding would love to chase down, and he'd love to start on the front row of the grid. So as it sits right now, the rookie in and fill in Supercars for this round is the one who will take the pole position should the finishing positions stay as they are right now. Steve Warwick for a little bit of a moment there out of turn 6 and had a bit of a clatter across the turn 7 ripple strips on the inside of the circuit.
Yeah, so it's definitely a lot of pressure. The interesting thing I will say is I expected a more fierce battle at this point over that 13th position, but very much tend to be having a fight to not be in 13th, because that 13th battle is actually the back end of a train for
with Callahan at the front
place right now. Yeah, so they're all fighting over 8th, where Callahan currently presides, with Higginson running behind. But nobody's really considered yet that 13th is pole for next race. Either that, or from that list of guys, they maybe don't want to be on pole, but they want to be the closest they can to it. They want to be second or third row, which is why they're running how they are.
Well, there's a change now at the moment too, because Knight's gone through on Ben Hall, so this would still be the front row. It would be Knight P2 and Hall P1 as it sits right now, but then Wedding will have something to say about that, I'm sure, because his last lap time last time around was a 20.0. These guys did a 20.7 and a 21.4 respectively, so he's coming.
Yeah, there's something to note, actually, looking at it as well from my memory, and I need to actually write this down somewhere so I can keep track of it. From memory, the white is the soft compound, which
correct.
Means the guys in this battle train, actually, let me just check Foley as well, but I know that Ben Hall and Ethan Knight are both out there on softs. Actually, this entire train is on softs, yes.
Well, I can tell you now, Callahan and Higginson are both on the hard, so they are driving with a hard tyre compound at the moment, as evidenced by the fact Higginson's having a bit of a slide there coming out of turn number 10. But we know that the hard tyre has got the longevity. You don't need to worry about its performance dropping off significantly like the soft does over time. And this is a touch and go thing this year, because the hard tyre is a new construction. It does make it a more viable race tyre. So yeah, that's why these two are on it at the moment. So Callahan up to 7th, Higginson in 8th, and then the battle pack behind, which sort of Foley has dropped into now and is 10th in the order. And he's got these guys clamouring all over him. Wedding's now right there. So this train
actually,
here...
he's been gifted that spot because Ben Hall went wide by himself.
Yes, he did. So Foley 10th, then you've got Knight 11th, and then Hall went wide. So Aiden Williams is 12th, and Wedding is now on provisional pole for the next race. So this is changing face of the back end of this race at the moment. It's not as interesting out in front at the moment, because Walker enjoys a 2.2 second advantage over Noah Taro, who's just extended to 2.3. So they'll be starting a bit further down the order. And yeah, Devonish has cleared away too. Stenny's cleared away in 4th, leaving Redmond behind. And then effectively the top 6 are really pretty much strung out. And it's from when we get down to Callahan, Higginson, and now Collins, who's starting to make a move, starting for the back end of the top 10, as Williams now fancies a bit of the action of Ethan Knight. He just actually left a couple of licorice straps out of turn number 11. That's curtailed his attempt to wrestle P11 away from the Mustang driver, and Wedding's getting very racy, looking to use all of the exit curb at the final corner to get a good run down this straight here. Up and over the rise in the front straight. Terrific shot. Love this one. The low-hanging camera gives you a good illustration of just how much elevation change there is in that front straight, heading down into the first couple of corners. And starting to get willing here. I don't think Wedding will be too fussed at this stage here, Rody. I think he'll be quite content just to stick to the back of Williams and just make sure he doesn't get caught by the cars behind him, which is Hall and Kiddis.
Yeah, it really depends on where he's at, because assuming I've read the compound, assuming I've remembered the compound colours correct, the entire train that is Callahan back to what is now Ethan Knight, that just swapped, is on softs. Lewis Wedding is the only one in this train on hards, which means he's going to have the pace in the last few laps to do something about it. And yeah, you know, you'd go, oh, you know, he goes squirreling around, he's on hard tyres.
Here we go.
He goes set up.
Speaking of Higo,
I understand. So it makes sense that he's having fun with that thing. But I think they are all on softs, so they're going to be feeling pretty second hand at the back end of this race, where it's going to have freshness, Foley nearly around as well.
Well, yeah, so Higginson got down the inside of Callahan at turn 11 quite smartly, had a good run out of 9 and 10, and then threw it all the way on the exit of 12. So these two hard tyre runners here, and then you've got Collins tucked in behind. So this is 7th, 8th and 9th on the road. Definitely hard tyres on that Monster Energy Mustang, and I'm just trying to get a glimpse of the car behind. I think that's on the hard tyre as well, and then Collins I think might be on the soft, as you were rightly calling a few seconds ago, Rody, but I just can't see for the life of me if Callahan's on the hard or the soft at the minute. On second impression, he might be on a soft tyre. I had a different angle to look at a bit earlier where it looked like he had hard tyres down the one from a right-hand side camera shot. Like this shot here that we're watching from Higginson, as they come around the corner here, can see that's definitely it's a yellow tyre, but then for Callahan, it's a bit hard to call.
Yeah, so that's to me the thing is where the tyre comes into it at the back end of this. Yeah, because definitely if the car's in front of him, Lewis Wedding has an advantage. Actually, that said, he has actually passed Ethan Knight in all this as well, actually. So he is trying to make something of his tyre advantage and pick up some points here, because even if he doesn't start on pole, he's going to start towards the front. He's going to start in front of some of the quicker guys. Actually, just put a move on Foley as well. So he's going for points in this race rather than trying to use this race as a launching pad for the next one.
Yes, that's right. So I can see him just in the back of the shot here with this group of cars. So Aidan Williams now in 10th place. And you said Wedding putting the points on at the moment and marching forward and up to 11th. Foley having a little bit of a cheeky look at his fellow ASR admin here. And this is what we saw Redmond do a little bit earlier. Managed to hang it around the outside, inside of 1, outside of 2, inside of 3. And they don't need to fight too hard over this because Hall's not making any inroads, but this is going to be the top 3 for the starting grid for the next race if they can hold it together for the next 3.5 laps. Wedding wants the points. That's the important thing. It's not about the pole, it's about the points. Oh! Knight.
Big dive.
Yeah, big dive from Knight, and he rightfully gives that one back up to Foley. That was definitely a day late and $1 short. Thankfully, no major contact, but what it did do was brought the pair of them closer to Hall.
Yeah, and very much I don't think that this back 3 is really too concerned about what 13th means, but I can imagine that Ben, if for no other reason than more points, is very much interested in what 13th means, and he's only 3/10 now off the back of Ethan Knight. It could very much be a position where, yeah, we're going to see someone, we very much have a good chance now of seeing somebody starting from pole who has never seen a pole before in ASR Supercars, but we've still got a few laps left to go.
No, that's right. And a few drivers still trying to recover here. Brown down 5 spots from where he started. You've got Igmanis behind him in 16th. Kiddis, who started rear of grid, has moved up to 17th. So he's done a fairly decent job to pick off a few more spots and put himself in a reasonable position for the next race. That time around, Hall 21.1, Knight 22.4, but that was by virtue of the fact that they both they overshot the mark at turn 6. Has Hall got something for Ethan Knight? That's the real question we're going to ask here in the next 3 laps, is has he got absolutely anything for him? Closest battle on the track is actually this battle over 8th, 9th and 10th. So the substitute for Cam Rutledge and Darryl Callahan has slipped back. Higginson's managed to get through and has got a margin. And both Collins has gotten through here, and now Callahan's under siege from the number 33 there of Williams. This is 8th, 9th and 10th on the screen. So it makes me wonder whether or not because it's a bit hard to see whether or not he did go for a soft tyre strategy, Callahan. Maybe he's just starting to fade a little bit. Last lap time was a 21.7. We'll get a read on what his lap time is this time around. He crosses the line, and it's a 21.4. So maybe not a performance drop-off, maybe just a mistake on the last tour.
Yeah, it'd be interesting actually to see. I've got a feeling that the yellow is hard, but what I was making with where I'm going with this is that fastest lap was just set the last lap through by Wayne Walker, who's got 3 seconds on Taro, so he doesn't have a reason to set a fastest lap. But one thing that would lead me to believe is he could only really do that on a hard tyre at this point, because a soft would be very, very far gone. You'd have to be conserving, which leads me to believe that those on softs, and I say to be fair, the entire top 4, top 5 are right there on hards.
Yeah,
I know they can push on those tyres.
I can see a yellow sidewall on the Walker car quite easily. So I'd say, yes, you're absolutely spot on. The hard tyre proving its worth there for Walker with just 1 lap to go now as he comes to the line. And yeah, to set the fastest lap of the race on lap 13 out of a 15-lap race is definitely showing something. Just lost Steve Burko in the last few moments as well to a non-finish. Not sure what's happened to him in this instance. But we are on the final lap. The race leader has commenced the final lap, and this battle still over the minor positions in the top 10 still going on. Higginson has now been caught by Collins, or is being caught by Collins, and Wedding now at the back of this queue is still just biding his time, I think, and maybe feels that he could grab another position if he wanted it, but he's got such an insurance blanket over the car behind. He's happy. He can go for a lunge if he wants, or he can sit there and finish and start 5th for the second for the top half inverted. Third for the top half inverted grid race.
Yeah, he's definitely looking at Williams. He was looking to make a move there at 1, but Williams was also trying to have a look at potentially a move on Darrell Callahan, which is why that all didn't play out for them. But Wedding definitely looking like he's got stronger pace than the cars in front at this point, and definitely stronger pace than Williams. Callahan is out there on the softs and done a really good job of managing his tyres at the end, especially with, again, where his expected pace has been to move himself back up into the 10 and to be running there comfortably now as well. He's still got a few corners left, so I don't want to jinx him just yet.
There's
Walker has just crossed the line to win. That shows the gap he's had on the rest of these guys.
And Tara home in second, and Devonish actually made some ground on Tara in the latter stages of that race. He was a good couple of tenths quicker a lap in the second half and comes home for third, so that's a lot closer than what we thought. So 3 Mustangs on the top 3 steps of the podium now. I think that's actually a first for ASR in the Gen 3 era, with 3 of the same manufacturer standing on the podium. Stenberg 4th ahead of Redmond, so I think it's probably very close to Tim's, one of his best results of the season. Ryan Smith, actually, he was quite quiet in all of that and held up the SES fold there with 6th, so he was the best of the SES drivers. Higginson 7th, Collins 8th, Callahan 9th, and then Wedding 10th with Williams 11th, Ethan Knight 12th. So your pole goes to Brenton Foley. So there's a late change that we didn't see in the script. So who was the person that has fallen out of favour with that one to allow Foley to jump up in the positions?
Oh, I think Foley was a part of that train, so Foley's actually fallen out of favour and then fallen into favour.
Well, there you go. So, yeah, well, how many times have we seen... how long has it been since we saw Brenton Foley start on the front row of a grid, let alone on the pole spot? It's been a while.
I have the stat in a sheet, but I don't keep the sheet up to date, but it's going to be a while. It's probably going to be at least 2, if not 3 years.
I reckon it's got to be 3. It's got to be at least 3 years, if not more, if not 4. It would have to. So yeah, it might even go back to his championship winning year. I thought was probably one of the year after his championship
the year after championship defence year. I think was probably the last time he was. Yeah, that's probably it. So probably
it would have been 2020. Yeah, so it would have been a long time ago. So Foley will get the pole for the next race. Brown, Egmanis, Kiddis, Hall. Actually, Ben Hall was probably the one who fell out a little bit in that one as well. He was pretty close to the top, so he's lost a few spots there. Steve Warwick, Darren Lochner, and Anthony Green. Green was the big casualty out of that one. Such a good start for Anthony Green, but unfortunately just couldn't recover after that off-track moment about halfway through the race where he went straight on at turn number 1. And then finishing it out, Brendan Ross, Daniel Cox, and this man on screen, Peter Thrower in the Beyond Electrical car. And the 2 cars that we lost, Burko, which looks like it's mechanical, and Luke Newing to a very expensive shift. Let's just put it that way, Roddy. If we're going to be politically correct, it's going to cost a bit of dough, I'd imagine, to fix the engine in that car.
Yes, it will, yes.
Alrighty. Well, that's it for the first race of proceedings. So race 8, the championship done and dusted. Short turnaround here. It's not going to be too long. We don't have any of these moments for us to go and catch our breath anymore, already. We just keep on talking.
More or less, yeah. There's a little bit of interchange, and we're probably going to have a few minutes as we try and get, amongst other things, Scott Murrell back into the server. He is around for race 2 because I think he had a pretty good qualifying position. He very much would have liked to see where he would have ended up in that split, but he's got a lot of work to do now from the back of the grid. Yeah,
he certainly does. And I did notice as well that there's been a few drivers with some dramas tonight as well. So the likes of Burko and Newing will obviously have a little bit of work to do. And good important thing, though, was every driver that started that one, and actually most of the drivers that have had some dramas throughout the night so far actually managed to finish. So that's a feather in all the drivers' cap. And very few incidents in that one. I can't recall. I mean, the worst one, I think, was probably the Ethan Knight, Brenton Foley situation down at turn 6, which was very well avoided and very minor contact, and the position was redressed straight away. And then you mentioned the one about the accidental contact between Green and Stenny. Stenny and
it was Stenny. It was Stenny and Green.
Yes, yeah, Stenny and Green. That put Green a little bit wide and was redressed straight away. So overall, I think it's a pretty good start to proceedings tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. That was It's very much. I suppose it's the it's something I talked about with guys at Hamilton the last time out, but it's very much the I suppose the thinking that we had as a dev series field a couple of years ago when we first were at Hamilton, and we knew Hamilton was going to be chaos, and we all kind of, without saying it to each other, we all collectively decided to go in with the idea that that we're going to get a safety car, let's try and avoid one. Similar thing here. There seems to be a collective idea, especially based off how dev series played out the week prior, that this track is going to cause a safety car. So let's try and do what we can to avoid one, because we know we're probably going to end up with one anyway. And I'm not saying there's been any communication to drivers, and I don't think anyone's necessarily as intentionally approaches any differently, but definitely people seem to be looking at this with we can cause a safety car here if we're not careful, so let's not cause a safety car, because there's been a couple of tries there where one or two cars have been off, but they've kept going. There's been at spots where you can get away with it. Even a couple of times when people have been off by themselves, done a good job of sort of staying out of harm's way, getting back going very quickly. I think like Tomo's little spin was a good example. He was off in the grass, but he got back going pretty quickly. And you get back going pretty quickly anyway, because you're going to want to. You're not going to want to lose positions, but absolutely, people can end up sitting there for a little bit, to let the train back through to catch themselves, and in the process, they flag a safety car. And yeah, so far, pretty good. Although having said all of that for the past minute, 3 safety cars in the next race.
Oh God, you got. Let's be a little bit more circumspect. I think
I'd like to think it'll go well, but I've every sentence there was just asking to be jinxed. So having said all of that, I'd be very surprised if there's not one.
Yeah, look,
especially with the top half inversion as well. There's potential for chaos there.
Well, look, if I'm being honest with you, Brody, and I have a look at the drivers that are starting, in the top 13, I guess is the way that I look at it. So Brenton Foley, experienced, knows what he's doing. Lewis Wedding starting 4th, experienced, knows what he's doing. The X factors that are in here that I'm looking at are Ethan Knight, who's on debut, so he's been relatively sensible in development series, so we'll be interesting to see how he goes. Aidan Williams has come up through the Dev Series ranks, has got some speed, but probably hasn't started this far up the grid before. Callahan starting 5th is definitely probably a little bit of a fish out of water. Last year's Super 2 champion Rory Collins in 6th, so he'll be, he knows what to do. He started on the front row before, but these are different machinery. And then Higginson and Smith, okay. And then the next 5, Redmond, Stenberg, Devonish, Tara, Walker, all know what they're doing. So I wouldn't say it's all doom and gloom to start with. There's definitely some wise heads up the front there. It's just about how those that haven't started up the pointy end of the grid at all, or very seldom, rarely have done so in all the series over the last couple of seasons, go about doing it. We saw Higginson hasn't started this high up the grid since his runner-up in Super 2 Championship a couple of years ago. Smith has been up the sort of the top end of the field in development series, so he knows what it's like being up that far. And as I said, Collins as well. There's just a couple of drivers up the pointy end that probably need to take a little bit of a moment just to pick their braking marker and just be a little bit sensible into turn number 1, 2 and 3, and they'll eventually get through. Just got a little bit of a practice session running here at the moment, so a few drivers taking the opportunity just to turn a few laps. And I guess the important bit now is the tyre strategy. So for some drivers, they will have looked at this and they would have thought, you know what, we tried the soft, didn't work, time to get out there on the hard and see how it goes. And do I want to actually make a setup change to make the soft a little bit better, or do I want to go with the hard tyre and just fight with it, or what do I do? Or do I drive a little bit less intense for 15 laps on the soft tyre and try and make it last? If I was Nathan Higginson, Rody, I wouldn't be bragging in the chat that you actually made the soft tyres last, because now everybody knows what strat you're on and how to play against it.
Well, no, I was going to say, I mean, for anyone watching the broadcast, like I was pretty much on the money for where it was sitting. Is that of that entire train, the only car in that train, to be fair, that train actually starts up in 5th. So the top 4 were out there on hards, and I'm absolutely revealing most of the strategy from the top runners. If anyone's listening, now's your chance. The top 4 runners were out there on hards. 5th back to where Lewis Wedding was when we were talking about tyres in that train were on softs, Wedding was on hards. It seems the go is on hards based on how the top 4 pulled away. And to be fair, there are people behind that would have probably equal pace. Green is a good example, but he got shuffled out well early and went up down the order. So he didn't have a representative race at all for where he's normally running. That's the furthest he's been from the front all season. That's sort of where the running is at. So I think really the hard tyres are the call. That said, that was based on a nice smooth run like we had, both with the slight sort of disjointed racing you get through a reverse grid, and again the potential for a safety car. Your hard tyre strategy goes out at the window a little bit there, because if you stay out on the hards, people come in pit and pick up softs, you're stuffed. So that's where you need to be able to think on your feet. And we've just lost Kurt Stenberg as well.
Yeah. So a few drivers are just waiting on a few drivers to jump in, jump out, do all the usual thing that we're doing. I mean, we've been watching Anthony Green go around for a little bit now, actually, Rody, because I've been busy typing at the keyboard trying to get a few things organised. One of the roles that people inherit when they do things like broadcasting is they inevitably have to control the server, and sometimes it's a little bit like herding cats. Keeping an eye on who's there and setting grids and getting everybody ready to go. And we might actually get a little bit of a visual here on a start from Ethan Knight. Let's just see how he manages to hook this one up. That's no wheel spin, but not the fastest start there.
Yeah, so the important shuffles, that's what I've been doing in the background, is getting the points up to date. So a quick idea of the changes we've had off that first race. Green's well, he's only lost one spot, but he is the big casualty in that one because a 20th compared to all the cars around him finishing the top 5 has pushed him back behind Tim Redmond. So Green's now 6th in the order. He's got a 20-point gap to where Redmond is. 606 plays 586. The other big mover in the top 10 is Daniel Cox. Was sitting 10th. He's now 11th. And all the cars behind him have moved down because they're not here, and Ryan Smith has popped up in the top 10 as well now. And then there's the only sort of big changes from there is Rory Collins with 8th. He's moved up to 12th. He was sitting somewhere at the back end of the 20 coming into tonight. And Lognan and Foley both up making moves as well. And Higginson starting to make some moves. He's far enough back that his 2/7 of the last 2 races aren't quite swinging moves just yet. But I mean, if this is indicative of where his pace is going this season, we'll start to see Higginson move up the order as well. Yeah,
that's it. So we'll wait and see how he goes as well. But he's had a reasonable start to proceedings. I think do you feel, Rody, like he's turned a corner? I think that's the bit that I'm sort of interested in. After putting in the hard yards, we had him in the box after Hamilton, and he felt like he earned it. And I agree with him. Do you feel like he's turned a corner? Do you feel like that did him a world of good? I mean, I had to tell him to go and practice this week as well. But is he getting there? Has something finally clicked?
I think I wouldn't say he's completely turned the corner yet. I do think he's making strides the right direction, though. I think he is getting hooked into where he needs to be.
Okay. Well, that's a positive. Higo, if you're listening, or Beth, if you're watching, go and pat him on the back and say well done before he goes racing again, and tell him to keep doing whatever he's doing. That'll save you from the redhead comment earlier. Ready? All right. Waiting for the grid to fill out so we can go racing for the second race of the night. This is the new format, so the second of the new formats for this year. The short-long format is the other one. This one is the little bit of a change compared to what we ran in 2023, with the top half of the finishing order from race 1 in the sprint format being inverted. And it gives us a bit of a mixture, and it gives some people a bit more airtime up the front. And if you're Brenton Foley, that means you are starting off of pole from as far back as we can work out. It goes back to 2020, the last time he started on the front row, let alone on pole position. And alongside him is someone making their debut appearance in ASR Supercars in Ethan Knight. So currently up the pointy end in the development series standings. And what's he got for the veteran heading into turn number 1? Behind them, Aidan Williams, his second year in the series, had done development series last year and now into Supercars with his pace. And Lewis Wedding, the veteran, in position number 4. Is he going to get angry with me calling him a veteran, Rody? One word, yes or no? Well, from Rody, he's gone somewhere else. I take it that's a no. Darryl Callahan in 5th place by virtue of finishing 11th in that one. He's going to have Rory Collins alongside him. So one, a current Super 2 driver, and the other one, the Super 2 champion from last year. Higginson in 7th with Ryan Smith alongside him, and then Tim Redmond and Kurt Stenberg going to share row number 5. Behind them is the top 3 from race number 1. Third in that one was Will Devonish, who starts 11th. Second was Noah Turra, he starts 12th. And first was Wayne Walker, and he starts 13th. So this is where they need to be very, very careful about how they pick their way through the field. Zach Brown starts 14th alongside Walker, with Egmanis after his off-track excursion all by himself recovering to 15th. So he's got some work to do, along with Alex Kiddis, who started rear, moved up to 16th. So that's a good bunch of spots for him from race 1 and looking to make more in race 2. Ben Hall starts 17th alongside Steve Warwick, with Darren Loughnane and Anthony Green, who was up the pointy end for a good chunk of the opening stanza of race 1, and just by his own mistake has fallen down the order and starts 20th for this one. He's got some work to do, but definitely got the pace. Brendan Ross, 21st for him, definitely further down the order than he'd like to be starting. Daniel Cox in 22nd, with Peter Thrower 23rd, and rounding out the grid we have Steve Burko, who was a late retirement from that first race, Luke Newing, who blew the engine a couple of laps into the race, and Scott Murrell, who unfortunately didn't start race number 1 with some sort of issue dropping out of the server, but he is here and is now in place for a 26th starting position, and it's a very quick form-up, and we are set for race number 2, which is race 9 of the ASR Supercars Championship. Foley and Knight on pole, and we are underway with a good start for Foley. Very nice start indeed. Good conversion, moves over to the racing line straight away to cover off Knight, and a bit further behind, it's Ethan has just got to think a bit positively here. He stays close to Foley, goes through the corner. There's a few mirrors going flying. Looks like Wedding might have gained a spot, and he has. He's gained a spot as Higginson gets spun out of a position there in the middle of the pack. I'm not sure if that was on his own or not, but Wedding up to 3rd over Collins and Williams behind. So good start for him. Stenberg with a great start as well. Look at him. He's leading the next group of cars coming down towards turn number 6. So he's gained 4 spots already, Rody.
Yeah, that's an angry cluster of cars. Callahan's very much sort of a cork in the bottle as things are sitting right now. With Stenberg already through, and Ryan Smith there, a little bit of movement in the background as well. Tim Redmond, Noah Turrell buried up in there. And Wayne Walker and Will Devonish somewhere back in that train as well. Really, this is really the strat though, is how you can make something of the early going. And if they're all on halves, then the entire advantage doesn't go to any one driver. It's really about making it through the field. So Stenberg with the early advantage from the race 1 leaders, but he's still a bit more traffic to contend with, and the others will be working their way through. So.
Well, I didn't see what happened to Higginson, but he was sort of, as you said, he's in that top 10 starting group, and he looks like he got some contact and got spun out, I think, partway through the first 2 corners, and he was on the infield there. So he's at the back of the queue, unfortunately, and I've got some work to do. Oh, as there's a moment for Wedding going down the braking zone to turn number 1. Stenberg goes straight through. We saw Stenberg do this really well at Winton, Roadie. We saw that he had a really good start, managed to make up the positions quickly and be within a threatening position for a front row berth and for a race, potentially for a race win at Winton. So he's sort of mastered these top half inversion conditions really well this year so far.
Absolutely, yeah. I just to go back to have a look for Higginson. He actually got a slight tap from Callahan as they were trying to get through turn 2 too wide. So that was what happened. Higginson out to the nose of Callahan and just ended up spinning. So that was quite unfortunate. But he's doing some work to get back through the field. He's one of a few drivers actually just looking at the timing tree. Something's happening actually at the back of the field, I think, because there's a monumental shuffle of positions. But Higginson and Scott Murrell have been charging their way up through the back of the field. Yeah,
they certainly have. So speaking of charging their way through the field, there's Anthony Green, who's now making a move down the inside of Ben Hall, just in the back of the shot here at the moment, and he's got that done. So that'll be 14th place for Green, so 6 spots in the opening 2 laps for him, and definitely on a charge in the Autobahn number 10. He's now getting onto the back of Will Devonish. He'll get a nice tow up the front straight here. The top 3 from race number 1 haven't made very many inroads at all. There's been a change between Walker and Devonish and Turra as well. So they've all gained a spot or 2 here or there. And you can see mirrors going flying here, there and everywhere, which is a bit of a hallmark of these cars. There's now a big queue being formed behind Ryan Smith. So 6th on back is a train. So here we go. Watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's about 12 cars in this little queue at the moment that are all behind Smith. It's going to get angry here pretty soon.
Yeah, that train currently goes back to Ben Hall in 16th, but that said, Burko's closing in. Newing and Kiddis currently 2 wide, but if they start working together, they'll catch up on this train as well. Basically, everyone that isn't the top 5 is potential to be in this train the next lap or two. When you're right, you can go 2 wide through a lot of this track, but it's also very easy to park the bus if you want to. And I don't think necessarily that Smith is trying to park the bus. He just maybe doesn't have the pace that he quite wanted on board. And, well, actually, I say he's not even quite parking the bus at this point, because he's starting to pull a little bit of a gap and actually now some Weddings.
Yeah, strengths and weaknesses, I think, is the important bit here, Rody. That's the bit that I'm sort of looking at, right? So we're going with Redmond, who's sort of buried down in this little pack, and I'm just staring at a rear wing of a amped up racing by CRE Mustang. But strengths and weaknesses, for the moment, Ryan Smith has got plenty of, a little bit of room between him and Wedding, and he doesn't need to do anything too silly. He just basically needs to use if he's got good drive off the corner, use it to build a gap. If you've got good speed through the corners, use that to build a gap. You've got a strength over your opponent, you just got to use that for the moment, and he's doing it quite well. He's actually managed to edge further away in front of Wedding. So for Lewis, he's now coming under siege from Egmanis, and remember, what did he start? He started like 15th or something, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, 15th, so he's now up to 8th, so 7 spots gained. So he's in a similar boat to Green here, who's gained a good chunk of positions at the start of this race, now glued to the pixel number 89. Green's charge has halted at the moment behind Will Devonish, so he's up 6 spots, but he's going to find it very hard to get past the number 15. Now, something for Will this year is he's run the number 1 at the start of the year, he's running it at the end of the year, but every race in between, he's running his traditional 15.
Yeah, so this is where it's going to start to get a little bit harder now for Anthony, because he's onto the train proper now. The sort of back end of the train has fractured slightly. Steve Burko now leads the second train for 15th. But yeah, now he's going to try and get up positions, and this is the thing. Devonish isn't where he's at out of any genuine pace. I think or any lack of pace. Like he is pushing, he's trying his best, but it's just where he's ended up. That's it. He's just put a nice move on Walker at turn 1, a little bit of contact, but I think they got through that.
Yep. Oh, it's getting a bit willing up the front here, because
actually that's opened the door for Tony to get through as well.
Yep, certainly has. Oh, and Wedding spun out. Wedding. So contact between Wedding and I think it was Egmanis, and through goes that group of cars, and that was headed by Egmanis, and he's now under threat. Now he's got his stablemate Noah Tara trying to go around the outside. He's got Redmond trying to go with him as well. And Wedding becomes an unfortunate victim in all of this as we go and have a look at our Paint Doctor replay. Let's get a little bit of a look at that one from trackside camera. And I'm not 100% sure. Looks like I'm suspecting there's some contact here on the corner exit, and yep, little bit of rear, and yep, that Egmanis I think is going to find himself in a little bit of trouble for that.
Yeah, I think the other thing to probably consider as well, which is what's influencing the way this race is played out, at least from where Lewis is sitting, is Lewis was the head of that train on hard tyres. There are other cars in that train on hard tyres. We know Tara will be, we know Wedding will be, we know Walker will be. But Egmanis was part of that early train that was running on softs, and I'm pretty sure a lot of those guys have stuck with the softs. Like Higginson making the example, making them last. I think that's what we're seeing, is that in this early stage, the hard tyre runners are deliberately trying to not so much bottle up, but they're trying to make the soft tyre runners behind them use up their tyres so that their advantage goes away.
Yep.
Whereas Egmanis was trying to get a move somewhere, was trying to get some sort of move going on Wedding, and he just couldn't. And in the end, he's probably just stuck in a position where he had a much better run out of the corner, but couldn't do a damn thing with it because he was stuck right up behind the rear wing of the pixel car.
Lost Zach Brown from this one as well. He's just nominated. He won't be starting the next race either. So unfortunately for the pixelated Elf Autosport driver, he won't be taking any further part in proceedings tonight. Foley has kicked away to a 5-second advantage at the moment, Rhodey, after almost 6 laps. And Stenberg is the next one sort of in the queue that can really probably threaten what's going on here. But Aiden Williams is holding his own right now against Stenberg.
Absolutely, yeah, and this is sort of the opportunity for something that we don't normally get to see, is how some of these guys that we never traditionally see around the leaders, how they actually interact with them. And Williams is a good example. I think it's only his second round that he's made this year, so we don't really have a true marker on where his pace sits. Ethan Knight's another good example coming out of Dev Series. We've seen, especially this year, that the crossover for Dev Series, or at least the front of Dev Series, and where they fall into the Supercars pack is a lot higher than it has been in previous seasons. That said, I think what we're actually seeing is just how some of the guys in the front of Dev Series adapt quite well also to the Gen 3 package. But yeah, he's doing a really strong performance as well as Rory Collins. I mean, they've both been passed by Stenberg, but he's not pulling away. Granted, they are probably both out there on soft, Stenberg's on hard, so the pace difference for Stenberg isn't going to be great at this point of the race, if any. But they're hanging on to it, and you know, it does a little bit for the self-confidence. I mean, Ryan Smith actually jumped into the back of this train as well, as you can see in the background. This does on for the confidence of some of these guys, is to be up there with someone of the likes of Kurt Stenberg, who's gone and raced for actual Supercars teams in a professional capacity in their E-Series. To be able to race alongside Kurt Stenberg and keep pace with him is pretty good.
Yeah, so the important bit there is Stenberg makes some ground on Williams through the second half of the lap and closed that margin down. So he had a bit of a tardy lap last time around. It was a half a second difference. It swings the other way this time around. In fact, Williams got a track cut for that lap as well. So he didn't register a time across the stripe. And I think that was in sector, I can't see what sector that was actually, because the sectors haven't come up. But Stenberg definitely made some ground here as we see him working away at the wheel of the number 47 and heading up towards turn number 4 and 5. So they've now kicked away into a little two-pair, and then leaving Collins and Knight and Smith to their own behind them. There they are, the three Mustangs. Here we go, Stenberg down the inside. That's pretty authoritative down there at turn number 6. And does he keep it on the island? He doesn't. He runs a little bit too wide, but comes back on with the real estate to boot. Now, 5 seconds of margin. Let's see what he goes from here. He's a bit loose through some of these parts of the circuit as well. So I have just noticed that he's bowled a wide on a couple of occasions and just dropped 2 tyres in the grass. But 5.1 the margin as it stands right now with half the race to go. What sort of pace has he got when he gets into clean air? Because Foley's doing 19.6s. Stenberg did a 19 flat last time around. Let's get a read on it as they come to the line this time. Foley's time this time around, 19.5. And an 18.9 for Stenberg. So it's a half a second difference. So if it stays that way, he's going to be on the rear door by the time we get to the final lap. Yeah,
the other thing to keep in mind, though, is, and this is actually, and I think, I have a feeling Foley's not far enough away because Stenberg is out there on the hard tyres, Foley's out there on the softs. The softs are going to wear off and the hards won't nearly as quickly. So it's very much going to be, I think, he's going to definitely get to Foley. The question is, can Foley park the bus well enough and is he not enough tyre at the back end of this? It'll be up to how much of this early stanza was Foley checking out versus the guys behind him just not being able to keep up.
Yeah, and has he gone into a tyre conservation mode as well to ensure that he can actually make the distance? That's the bit that we'll be keeping an eye out for over the next little bit. We've also lost Darren Lockman in the last couple of moments as well, so that's another retirement from this one. It's going up with the Pixel Boys because they're down in, 20th and 21st. It's not been a good round for them. Okay, as you were, gentlemen. I was about to say, a little bit of contact between the stablemates there going on down at turn number 5. Sent Ross a little bit wide. But no, it hasn't been the best round for them. But of course, remember, everybody gets a drop round. That's the important thing. Everybody gets a drop round.
Yeah, I think at this point they're, unless something else comes up to play into their way, they're very much consigned to the fact they're going to be 20th and 21st. I think they're just having a bit of fun between the pair of them at this point. They are the only 2 pixel drivers left in the servers. That round, as mentioned earlier, is out and will be out for the rest of the night. So they're just having a bit of fun with it because they realise they're probably not going to pick up too many consequential points from here, again, unless something else happens that they can't control anyway, because they're 4 seconds, I think, back from the car in front. Yeah, that's right. You see the next car up the road, there's actually Scott Murrell, who's tucked in behind Peter Thrower, who's made a couple of spots in this one as well. A bit further up the field, Igmanis. So he's one of the drivers that was on a recovery path and has moved himself up to 8th after starting 15th. Green is the other big mover, and he's moved into, I think it's 12th, and he's closing in, I believe, on the back of Tim Redmond. And just keep an eye on what the lap times are for them. Actually, Redmond was quicker last time around. I think Green had a little bit of traffic or a moment to correct. So he is hopefully not too far away from joining this battle, but was it
5 Mustangs, 6 Mustangs all in a row. I mean, we did say they dominate the category this year, and look, they've actually caught up to Tara and to Knight as well. And then if you call it even more, there's about 9 or 10 Mustangs in a row if you look at them all from, what is it, from 4th on back to 12th.
12th, yeah. Yeah, nice little string of Mustangs there, bookended by a Camaro on one end and a pair on the other end. But it's interesting to see how things have played out this year. But yeah, I mean, that many Fords in the top 10, we can't have Ford Mummy ringing us and finding out the parity here at least, so that's good.
Yeah, that's it. But we always what did we have at Hamilton? I think it was it 9 Fords and 1 Camaro in a top 10 shootout, and Stenny still beat them all. And I think it was a case of hooray for parity.
Something like that, yeah. I mean, the numbers are there. They just don't quite got the quality of pace in this space for that kind of metric. But they're halfway there.
They're halfway there. So the margin now down to 2.9 seconds. So we alluded to the fact it was probably going to be erased fairly quickly with Foley, as you said, out there on the soft tyre, it appears. And just looking at the lap times, there's a big differential at the moment. So 19.6 last time around, played an 18.7. And most of the damage being done, actually the damage is across all sectors. So this time around, 19.9 for Foley. It's getting worse, but despite the fact it was a green last sector for him, and an 18.9 for Stenberg. So yeah, the damage being done, 3/10 in sector 1, 2/10 in sector 2, and 4/10 in sector 3. So it's across the board right now. Now, from Foley's point of view, I don't think he'll be too concerned if he loses the race lead to Stenny. I mean, yes, he'll probably put up a bit of a fight. He's going to make him earn it, but with the tyre compound differential, I don't. And sorry, I just knocked my. I was about to say, I just knocked my. I knocked my thing there for a minute, and I'm not 100% sure what happened. It just went on to the mic just went off all by itself. So, as I was going to say, Foley is he's definitely going to put up a fight here, but at the end of the day, I still think that Stenberg will probably get past, but it's just a matter of how he gets past and when he gets past.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, because I wasn't sure what was happening either, and I thought my end had gone, and I wasn't sure. If I start talking at some point, am I going to cut in where I can't hear you? And it's like, okay, if I just sit here quietly and wait to see what happens. So a lack of audio from
I actually wanted to thank Jesse Bennett for tipping me off in the chat. He said Rick Nether, and I'm like, okay, yeah, well that means that I've probably got a little bit of work to do. As Stenberg, as you can see here, the margin coming down, the PBF Camaro getting bigger in the mirrors. This is where I think the damage is really done. Down here under braking for the turn 6 hairpin. Look, you can see the margin basically halved. So it went pretty quickly, and it is right there now. So the margin just on half a second with still 2 laps to go. I mean, anything's possible, but we expect that it will be probably down. I would imagine Stenberg will pick his moment probably at turn 1 if it's going to happen, and Foley will probably be a sitting duck down the straight. Yeah, the car's sliding a little bit off of turn number 11. Stenberg knows the trick. Good exit out of here. Good head of speed straight away. Foley's slide's not going to help him. It's going to be over and done with here down the front straight, and to the inside comes the 47, and it will be a fait accompli for a change of the race lead. And straight away down the inside, Foley compression locking, making it difficult, but holding it round the outside. That gives the inside to Stenberg for the next corner, and he noses ahead, and now Foley's got to tuck right in behind. Can't really get the drive off the next corner here. It's a bit of a difficult prospect at the narrow line, and I expect that will they run side by side. He doesn't withdraw, so Stenberg will need to leave him some room here. So Foley is putting up the fight, and we thought he might try and make it difficult, and this is a highly respectful battle on the second last lap, as through the right-hander at 6, now on to the next one at 7. The next corner goes left, little bit of push and shove, little bit of elbows out. good, hard, fair racing, and Stenberg will get it done now. Consolidate at 9, through Little Kink at 10. There's one more probably opportunity for Foley to stick it, and that'll probably be at turn 11. He needs to strike if he was close enough. He's a bit too far back now.
Yeah, he's doing a good job there of getting what he could out of the end of the tyres. He can definitely still, I think, make it to the end from here with the tyres he's got. And he's got a comfortable margin now back to Williams. Stenberg really probably is comfortable enough to just check out. It's up to Stenberg what he wants to do with that. But
it's only one lap to go.
Lap to work with, and not a bad exit off that. Actually, no, slightly better exit off that corner, but also the slipstream's keeping Foley in it. But the slipstream isn't going to cover him off through the corners, and that's where this car is really going to start to suffer now.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I wanted everybody from the development series that's watching to pay attention, because when it comes to battling, that's how it's done, right? 2 seasoned veterans just put on a half a lap show for you of what it's like to race door handle to door handle. And, if you're looking to move up into the supercars world, that's what you need to do. That's how you drive, and that's what will get you recognised and respected. And Stenberg, I think, Foley's earned the respect of Kurt Stenberg after that one, as he always has, and that's just upped that a little bit more. So, on his way to another race victory this year. 3rd place for Williams is the best that he can muster at the moment, but take nothing away from him. Started up the order by virtue of a good drive in race 1 and has held his own and did his best to hold up Kurt Stenberg for as long as he did. I mean, if it had gone on for another lap, we might have been talking about a possible Foley victory as it potentially sits, but take nothing away. First top 3 finish, I think, in Supercars competition for the 33. Here's top 3 coming to the line now. So Stenberg with a couple second win there at the end of the day. Foley with his customary trademark slides off the final corner, and Williams home in 3rd place. So that'll be a good result for him. Noah Tara to 4th in the Motail entry. Oh, there's a bit of a late battle here for 5th. There was a mirror of, I think it was Walker's mirror went flying off the last turn. Yep, left-hand mirror cover departed company with the 217, and he snatched 5th place from Ryan Smith. And that was quite close at the end there. There was just over a 10th in it. So late change of position there for 5th and 6th. Collins 7th. Green gets up to 8th. Good result for Anthony Green. That's a really solid drive. 12 spots gain. That's probably the best of all the drivers today. And then Burko 9th. And Callahan gets a 10th. What happened to Will Devonish? He was sort of in the lower realms of the top 10. He's faded to 14th, along with his teammate Igmanis in 13th.
The only thing I'd say is I went back looking earlier for what happened to Curtis Igmanis. I didn't quite catch it through everything else that was happening at the time. It was, I think, at the time where our audio died and I thought something was broken. So I got distracted clearly with that, but all I remember was his teammate was near him at the time, and I don't want to believe that the teammates came together at turn 1, but if they did, that could be a several laps later redress from Devonish after he realised that he wasn't going to get anywhere with it. That's a possibility given how close they are on track. But something else could happen there, because you're right, Will was pretty comfortably at the back end of the top 10 and then wasn't. So he could have had his own mistake, but I'm pretty sure he's out there on hard. So, tyre life shouldn't have been I don't know, but that's a possibility.
Well, fly on a wall in a CRE dressing room after this one. We'll soon find out. Luke Newing started at the rear of the grid, 14th place, so he goes along with Green. Actually, he was the best mover of the day up 14 spots to 11th, so he's in a good spot for a points haul after this one. And then Kittis 12th, actually a good drive from Kittis too. And then Igmanis and Devonish, those two that we were just talking about. We have no idea what happened to them. Redmond as well. He must have been caught up in something going on there as well. Knight 16th from Warwick, and then Murrell started 18th, and then Peter Thrower 19th, and then Wedding, Ben Hall, Ross, Daniel Cox and Higginson, the other classified finishers, and then the non-finishers, Lochner and Rao. After all that one. So race 2 for tonight over and done with. So race 9 complete, and by the time we finish the 3rd race coming up in just a few moments' time, it will be, of course, 10 races completed in the season, Rhodey. So chalking them up pretty quickly, 12 races by the time we get to Barbagallo in 2 weeks from now, and be pretty close to halfway through the season.
Yeah, it's flying
Scary.
through. It's flying through, but it's also because of how tightly we've packed the start of the season that's really throwing you off with that. But yeah, it's it's a blink and you miss it kind of season the way it's going at this point. Like I was very much like, right, I've got liveries planned. I'm doing this, that, the other, and then it wasn't until like start of this week that I realized, oh yeah, Barbagallo's coming up soon. I wanted to have a livery in for that.
Mm.
As things are sitting, I probably won't. I'm going to push that back to Adelaide because it's half done. But I had social series on Wednesday. I've got this tonight. I had a meeting Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. I'm running out of time with everything I'm doing. I need to maybe give some of it up, but it's flying through this year in a way that it hasn't in previous years. But that just seems to be how it goes. The older you get, the more the years just fly by.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I turned 40 this year, Rody, so I'm getting to a point where I'm like, geez, where's the last 20 years of my life gone? With everything that's happened, I completely agree with you. The year's going very quickly, and I made the fatal mistake of thinking we had a little bit more time than we actually did for the Bend round, and was a little bit late getting circuits and things out. So it was one of those things where I thought, whoops, even I'm starting to lose it a bit, and I have a pad where I write everything down that I have to do still. So even I completely missed that one. But nonetheless, still good to be here, still good to be broadcasting. And really good to have the support of yourself and also everybody in the chat and those that watch it back after the racing is over as well. It's been really, it's a privilege to do it. And obviously it's helped me go on to some bigger and better things over the last several years as well in real life. So, or something that I always like return to my roots and wouldn't miss it for the world. Short warm-up at the moment while we wait for drivers to get themselves reinserted for race number 3. So we've had the main race, we've had the mixed up grid, and now we're in position, Rody, where we have drivers that are, I guess some of them are back in reasonable positions compared to what they were at the start of race number 2. So the likes of Wayne Walker and Noah Tara have moved themselves forward. So they're in a position now where they were quicker than Stenberg in race number 1. They had his measure quite comfortably. So are they in a position now where they can really make a good fist of it for a potential race win here? I mean, we've seen Noah hasn't quite got a race win outright before in Supercars. He has been gifted one by virtue of some penalties, I think it was last year, but he would definitely love to get one on the board for of his own volition.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be honest, I was half listening. I was trying to get the points down. But yeah, it's very much a push for some of these guys. You can get very much. I wouldn't say samey, but it gets very much sort of just the going thing for somebody like a Stenberg, like a Rosell who's not here tonight. I suppose like a Foley, go back to the days of 2019, 2020. For some of these guys where a podium is just expected. You like maybe not quite to the strength of the persona that Lewis throws into his interviews sometimes, where I finished third. This is the worst result I've ever had. But they're very much you get very much used to them. I imagine, like for example, at this point, what was it? The Miami Grand Prix. The gap that I think Verstappen had it might have been qualifying or whatever, but I can't remember where it was. All I can remember was that his response to where he was relative to the cars around him was lol.
That was in the sprint. I remember that.
Which you kind of get, which I can kind of see that you get to when you've been running up the front for as long as he has. Same probably attitude, general look of things that Hamilton would have had during his era. That just if you're not in the front row, there's actually something gone wrong. But with a more realistic outlook on it, I mean, front rows are pretty good. You look at I think the last team that was really up there punching like that was it was one of the new entry teams in 2010. It was the team that what's his face, 2014 Suzuka. So I remember who that team was. It was the guy. It was the driver who was next going to be in the seat of a Ferrari. But yeah, I'm blanking completely. But like that and like Minardi, we go back to back when Minardi were Minardi. They'd get top fives. They'd get points, and they'd be celebrating like they won the world championship because it actually meant something more to them. And that's sort of the thing. I think some of these guys that are up to the front maybe need to shift perspective a little bit, but definitely for the guys down the back, there's a lot of work that goes into just getting up to. So like Williams is a great example. He has not seen a podium yet, I think, in ASR at all. this including Dev Series, and then to just pop into one. Granted, kind of had an advantage thrown his way with the reverse grid, but he could have faltered, and he didn't. Not only with that, he was able to pull away from the other guys around him in race one. He managed to make the soft tyres last. He managed to put a good fight in for Kurt Stenberg. He wasn't too far off the pace of Brenton Foley out there on the softs either. And yeah, like it's going to be a bit of work now with the grid congested. What it's going to also do, if the tyres stay the same, is Foley's going to be out there on the softs, and Stenberg's going to be out there on the hards. And same thing for the first few laps. Probably Foley's maybe going to get a little bit of a clearer way, but more importantly, he's going to be able to park the bus on Stenberg, which will give Walker and Tara, and especially Devonish, the chance to try and come back up and claw some points away. Because at this point, the way this is going into is very much going to be a very easy sort of points. Well, not got a free kick, but definitely handballing a lot of points to Kurt Stenberg just by virtue of the fact that he got through the field and the others didn't.
Yeah, that's right. As I said, Stenberg is probably one of those cases that we've seen already this year. We've seen it twice now in the 2 rounds that we've had for the series, where the sprint races have thrown up that reverse grid component. He just seems to get a really good start, because his starts have been a hallmark for quite some time, and he uses that to good effect, puts the car in good position, makes a few spots, knows where to place the car. Importantly, I think Rhodey is what I'm sort of looking at here from that situation, and gains 3 or 4 spots on lap number 1, and the rest is history after that point. You put yourself in a good spot and minimise the impact that reverse starting grid actually brings with it.
Absolutely, yes. That's a lot of it is, and it's for some of the newer guys that are picking up. I mean, Tara's got pace, we know that. Will's got pace. He's picked up a championship, and he's been there or thereabouts every year. And fourth, Timmy was Timmy. Yeah, Timmy. Yeah, Timmy's been oh so close to a win many a time. They've all got the pace. Maybe it's just, and it's one of those things as well. Is the difference is that Kurt's still a bit of an outsider, especially some of the newer guys in the grid. He only jumps in for supercars. He doesn't necessarily, go to the strengths of a Will or a Tim and make himself involved in Dev Series nights. He's not on regularly, like, say, Noah, and jumping in and chatting. He's still very much sort of doing his own thing, very much, I suppose, doing the Kimi Räikkönen strategy at this point. He's here to race, and like he's not trying to go his way to not make friends, but it's just he plays it as it sits. And it's meaning that the other guys are maybe being a bit more courteous, because they know that they're going to likely run into that person the next week, and they don't want to have a discussion of, hey, why'd you barge me out of the road? Whereas Stenberg not only barged me out of the road, but he doesn't have to worry about getting the greetings, getting the handshake, and the how you do over and done with. He can just move through and pass people.
That's right.
So he's taking advantage of that.
He certainly is. Well, he's going to be starting off the pole for the final race of the night. So 3 different pole sitters for the night, one by qualifying, and the other 2 by the way that the racing has played out. And the grid now forming up, ready for a race start for race number 3 of the evening. A few drivers sort of down the order that are looking to make amends for their night's work. Oh, there's a few drivers that are Stenberg still sitting in the garage there, just waiting for a few things to happen. Now we've got Stenberg on track and just waiting for the others.
I've just noticed we've just lost Adam Williams as well.
Yep. All right. Well,
really unfortunate timing.
That's all right. Well, we might actually, we probably will wait for that one and go again. So we will move that one back, and we'll go again and go from there. We've actually been pretty good and pretty fortunate tonight, I think, Rhodey. We haven't had too many of these sorts of dramas aside from the very beginning of the night. So this is one of those sort of rare exceptions that we do allow a little bit of time in the schedule for this sort of thing. The sprint racing is kind of not too bad. It's only just gone 10 o'clock Melbourne time here at the moment. So plenty of time still to go. Yes, it is 12 o'clock midnight across the ditch in New Zealand. We do try and keep these things relatively time conscious, I think, is what we go with.
Yep.
Sorry, just having a little bit of a drink of water as well. We've been talking
That's
for a
right.
fair bit. I
Yeah,
think it's one of
yeah.
those things we need to look at. As we talked about a little bit earlier as well, the next round, of course, is Barbagallo, but then the rest of the calendar on from Barbagallo is Hidden Valley, so that's the only round in June. For Supercars, so if your development series, it's June 7. If your Supercars, it's June 14. And then we get to another circuit that's been off the calendar for a couple of years in the Gold Coast Roadie, so Surfers Paradise Street Circuit. So for 5th of July, if you're Supercars and if your development series watching it over on the Loose Sim network, for you that is the 28th of June, so there's 2 rounds in June over there. What are your thoughts going into Gold Coast with Gen 3, Rady? I know there's a little bit, and I will preface this discussion by saying that for the Supercars group, there is a small change coming for Gold Coast, and that will be to enter the entry to turn number 1. So we did reconstruct that circuit for us in real life. A couple of years ago, we constructed it to be a bit more like the Dimensions, but the real life approach to turn number 1, it just sort of opens up a little bit more than what we had anticipated. So that'll be realigned and reset for this year, which will mean that the turn 1 approach speeds are a little bit higher. You can brake a little bit later, but you'll be able to carry a bit more flow like in real life through that chicane. So I don't know what to expect with Gen 3, Rady, through for our cars through the Gold Coast. It is actually, I should point this out now so the drivers are all aware. The Gold Coast will be the last round of the year at this stage where it is an open tyre formula. So from round 8 onwards, there is going to be some tyre rules that are enforced that everybody needs to adhere to. So first 7 rounds of the year, all open tyres, and then from round 8 through to round 11, or in Dev Series round 8 through to round 13, there will be some tyre observations that people need to make.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how, if we went a little bit longer, just noticed a whole bunch of people get warped out of the server. It's interesting to see how things go. I was thinking in my head of a very classic 2.5 Men quote of you can put a I think it's either a bow tie or a suit on a goat, but it's still a goat, and that's kind of some sentiments on fixing up turn 1. It is still a street circuit. It is still Gold Coast Street Circuit. It is still the most likely chance to run into a safety car on the calendar. But it's one of those things, much like Hamilton, even here, you see the difference between Dev Series and Supercars. I mean, driving standards and whatnot play a part into it as well, and the interplay between the cars in the field. But 2 races, and they've tried a couple of times here in Supercars tonight, but no safety cars, versus I think at this point tonight in Dev Series, where we're at 4 or 5. Same thing, we could go into Gold Coast with Dev Series and have a really clean night. We go into Gold Coast with Dev Series and have to borrow Hans's quote, something on the lines of eyes and bleach from, I think it was the 2020 Gold Coast race. That could be the outcome. I think for Gen 3, I think we're going to be pretty good. It's one of those things where it would maybe almost play a little bit nicer as an enduro, just because less cars are on the grid, and also the format does definitely then play into you're not winning this on lap 1, you're going to be smart with your movement. But definitely still, I think we are still running a longer format there. And for the Gen 3 cars, they lob the curves a little better. The big thing I think for these guys, and they're learning it as they go across the season, is that these cars are a bit wider, and they've done a pretty good job of remembering that at this point, but we've had a lot of open flat, like this one's a brilliant example. There's no walls to run into here unless you're well wide of the track. So you'll find here, but street circuits, I can see cars catching themselves out. Especially through the chicanes, and especially through that first chicane. I can absolutely see in practice, this could just be something they sort out in unofficial practice, but can absolutely see a position where we end up with cars snagging tire bundles or walls. And I need to actually double check if we're doing a shootout then. But if we are doing a shootout, it'll be the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised. Somewhat of the track cuts, somewhat will be snagging walls. But from what people have said, these things handle curves better than the Gen 2 cars, and you can tweak them to get working better again. I think that was one of the changes was with, I talked earlier about Higo's Dark Magic setup. The car that he somehow managed to rummage out was one that was really, really nice over curbs. I heard that comment from a couple of the SES fellas that were driving it. yeah, I think that part will play nicely. The cars will be a lot better to lob over a curb, but they're potentially going to be a little bit worse through the narrow sections, and also the stop-start nature might work out better for these cars, but it might also impact them in ways as well. That said, there's not really any sort of fast-flowing corners at Gold Coast, so I think these cars overall are going to suit better than the Gen 2 cars that Dev Series are running.
Yeah, well, the only real flowing parts of the circuit that you can really flow are like you've got to have flow through the chicane at the back of the beach chicane. That's the primary one, and you've got to have try and get some sort of flow going through the opening chicane. But you're right, the rest of it all is just straights and medium low speed corners essentially. Being around a street circuit. One more driver, just the one more driver to load back in after the little issue. I think a few drivers sort of jinxed themselves in that one. I think Peter Thrower was one of those.
Sorry, I was just looking at the timing. We finally got Steve Burko in, and the second Burko
yes, I know. We've, as I said, we'd ridden our luck throughout the night, and we'd sort of gone a bit too far. Well, we've waffled on for a bit here, so actually what we're going to do is we'll just go back and have a look at the point standings. So let's bring up the top 10 here again while we wait for one last driver. So coming into the night, that was how the point standing sat. Now, if we have a look at that now, the top three are still top four are still the same, but there's now actually a tie for fifth between Redmond and Green. They are level on points, and by virtue of Green's 2 third-place finishes to Tim Redmond's 1 third-place finish, that's what gives him the gong at the moment. So essentially you could say the top 6, actually top 7, 8, I'm just adding them up here, the top 8 are currently, as they sit, are the current running order. Just the points are a little bit different, and then Ryan Smith and Rory Collins are the next two inside the 10. So they've moved in at the expense of Ross and Cox, who have moved out of the top 10. So that's just the lay of the land with how that sits now. It looks like we got everybody back, and just getting a few things together, and now we are right to go again. So that's, as I said, a little bit of a whole pattern, but you and I are old hats at this now, Rody. We know all about what it takes to fill in time and all that sort of stuff. And drivers now getting themselves ready to rumble for one last time here for race 10 of the championship. It's only taken 20 minutes a sprint race, so this is this was the timing that we were trying to look at. 3 lots of as close to 20 minutes of racing as possible, and the 2 races so far tonight: 19 minutes 49 seconds and 19 minutes 55.
Yeah, so pretty consistently timed, and that's also the thing, is it was keeping it nicely running on time. We go back to the last round for Supercars, and Hamilton race 1 was an hour.
Yes.
Part of that was the race length as well, but also was the amount of safety cars. They've done a pretty good job of keeping things on time tonight. Finding the wood in my room while I say that, because I don't want to jinx it now that especially we've given up a little bit of our time margin to make sure we get all 25 cars on the grid for race number 3.
Yep. And just waiting on, who are we waiting on there? We're waiting on Stenberg, I think it was. Yep, to get himself going, and he has got himself going. So roll through the grid real quickly here for me, Roddy.
Alrighty, so starting from pole on this one is Kurt Stenberg, the number 47 Anti-Coal Autosports Camaro. Really good run for him to work his way through the field, and he's going to be the benchmark for those other quick runners. Second is Brenton Foley. Very much probably going to be trying to do the same thing in that, as in the second race, push out hard early and then try and hold off the advance of the hard tyre runners. Third is Aidan Williams. He's had a really good race especially race number 2. He's really showing some form after coming back to the series after missing a few rounds. So good to see if this continues to go the way it is going for him. Fourth is Noah Taro. Had a pretty good showing for the Motul Amped Up Racing CRE Mustang tonight. Got a little bit of work to do to get back up to the podium though. Fifth is Wayne Walker. Similar charge on the line for him as well. He's much closer than he was at the start of race number 2. Sixth is Ryan Smith. He was at the back of the train, sort of up there by himself, but he's got a bit of work to do, and he can very much tack onto the back of these guys in front off the early running, with Rory Collins starting out of 7th and his teammate Anthony Green in 8th. They've got a bit of work to do as well, but they've had some really good performances tonight as well. Ninth is Steve Burko. He's actually had a pretty quiet run, but to be starting up in the top 10 is good work for Burko, with Daryl Callahan doing a mega job in the as a sub for the 015. Probably the best points in the 015 as well all season so far, not to take away from Cameron, his regular work. 11th is Luke Ewing. Very good debut for SES Satellite Racing. They're going to pick up some good points out of this one, with Alex Kiddis in 12th. That puts both Wayne World Motorsport cars in the top 12. We haven't seen that in a little while. Kosek Martis in 13th. Bit of work to do after being tapped off late in that one, with Will Devonish back there as well in 14th. He's got a lot of work to do to get back to the front runners. 15th is Tim Redmond, with a bit of work in mind as well, with Ethan Knight starting out of 16th. He can go a little bit further forward than that. Steve Warwick's had a relatively quiet night, starting out of 17th for this one, with Scotty Murrell in 18th. He had a recovery at the back end of that one, so he's going to try and work his way forward from here. Pete Thrower starting out of 19th position, and Lewis Wedding out of 20th. He and his teammate Brendan Ross will be trying to work their way up through the field, but between the pair of them is Ben Hall out of position 21, and then we got Brendan Ross out of 22nd. And it's Daniel Cox out of 23rd, Nathan Higginson out of 24th, and Darren Logden lines up at the back of the grid out of 25th position.
Certainly does. Now, I did notice as well that there was more soft tyre runners in this race than hard tyre runners as we were working their way through the field. So that'd be something to keep an eye on. Early performance of the soft versus the performance of the hards over the distance. So here we go. Race 10 of the championship. Getting to the halfway point of the year, we are underway. Good even start, actually. Foley, I was looking forward to seeing how Foley converted the start there, and he's had a better secondary phase of the start, actually, but this might be the soft tyre advantage coming into play here over the hard tyre. Good reaction times, and he sweeps through to the lead, so he does get through with that soft tyre performance. As we said, early soft tyre performance versus the longevity of the hard. Foley puts it to good effect, goes to the lead of the motor race, and Walker looks like he's gained a spot there over the likes of Tara, and actually, in fact, Tara's gone a little bit backwards here. So Walker now has to fend off the advances of a fast-starting Smith, who's gained a spot as well, looking to clamour up into the fourth place for SES. Oh, there was a moment for Williams, and I'm wondering, did he have some sort of game issue or some sort of other concern, because that has triggered the safety car.
All right, well, that was early enough that I don't do anything with the soft tyre runners, but yeah, looking at that live, I'm pretty sure there was a momentary game freeze and it joinked Williams back into the nose of Wayne Walker.
Yep, that's what it looked like on my observation as well, as we get the grid going, the field going around here at the moment. We'll cut back and have a little bit of a look at that as well, just from my own point of view, just to see what happened with that one. But yes, from where I was sitting, he was travelling down the road. All of a sudden, there was a pretty substantial yank, almost like the handbrake was yanked on, and nowhere for the crew behind to go. So will be deemed a racing incident, no doubt.
I will say, actually, that there was the combination of that, and actually separate to that, there was a second checkup at the back as well. I could see a couple of cars involved there. Newing, Tim Redmond, Steve Warwick, just a big checkup on the brakes. I think just everybody piling in a little bit faster than the cars in front of them. So look, they got their turn 6 out of the system fairly early in this one at least. Happy to wait till race 3 to do it as well, but we saw this from Dev Series. Turn 6 is the easy place and almost a guaranteed place to throw a safety car because of the checkup and the fact that the corner is so tight that you can run like 3 or 4 lines through that corner, but yeah, you've got to have a clean road to work with, and if the car in front of you don't have that clean road.
No, that's right. Well, we might have to call turn 6 the Meatloaf corner, I think, Brady, because it was Meatloaf that said 2 out of 3 ain't bad, and we got through 2 of the 3 races at turn 6 without it causing a safety car. So that's its affectionate name now in ASR, is the Meatloaf corner.
I will say thank you to Lockie and Jesse in the chat for keeping me honest on that one. I did jinx the racing, but I intentionally really ended up I thought I jinxed race 2 harder than race 3, but oh well. I expected one to come at some point based on Dev Series happening, and look, for all the things that played out there, that was probably the lightest option we could have had. I think one car's pitted, which is Newing. He had damage, or whether he's trying to, he could just be doing the strategy. I
reckon he started, Brody. I reckon he was one of the ones that started on the hard tyre, has now gone to the soft. I'm pretty sure he started on the hard tyre.
yeah, the longer this safety car rolls, the more it's going to play into the soft tyre runners, because their tyre life is such that, like, I think I did get the DCD race facts, and I think that's the one thing we've missed discussing tonight. But I did get them, but I haven't actually remembered what was said in them. But I remember the gist of it was hards and push or softs and insert. But I didn't actually get a look on how long the soft tyres are meant to last for.
Well, we actually didn't cover it, so it's actually a pretty appropriate time to bring up our pallet control solutions race facts. And the only thing that I'd brought up was because of the tight turn number 6. So you can see it right there on your graphic. That was the big talking point from last year. It's been a talking point this year, but it really hasn't materialised at all tonight. But while we're talking about the track facts, if we do, thanks to Daniel Cox for putting these ones together for us. But the fuel wasn't so much a concern in race trim. It was you wouldn't even need to start with a full tank, but it was most of the time was the hard tyres. You go onto the hard. You start with consistent lap times, and you plod along. I said starting on the soft tyres open up a bit more of a strategy, as you can be a bit faster for up to 5 or 6 laps, but then the degradation would start to come back in and the hard tyre would overtake it. And then if there was a safety car sort of in the mid-race, it was worth coming in for a new set of soft tyres. But for Luke Newing's case, he's down the back now. Well, he was sort of like middle of the pack, so he sort of thought, well, guess what, I've got nothing to lose, so I'll come in and put on a set of soft tyres and see how far I can get. And you're right, the longer it goes, the more beneficial it is for soft tyre runners. And it is a random draw, so it's somewhere between 2 laps and 4 laps. That's the only count that we know of, and we will get an idea of what's happening as soon as the race leader, which is Brent Foley, starts to get control of the field, which is normally coming up to this turn here. Turn 11 is the point where they need to start getting control of the field and letting the safety car escape. Given that they are a little bit too close to the safety car now, I would suggest we are going around again.
Yeah, the other thing as well, another 4 cars went through the lane there as well. Safety car, looking like it was going in the lane for a second there. But yeah, the other 4 cars have pitted. So Daniel Cox, Ben Hall, Scott Murrell, and Nathan Higginson have all pitted as well. I think they were all soft tyre runners, but I suppose they took the strategy that I picked up. But to be fair, it's the strategy that ultimately is the pixel strategy that we've called it. One of their few that they've got in their arsenal that we've called from this year is that when it's a safety car, stay in your compound. But if you're down the back, just go and get a fresher version of that same compound. And like the true way to adopt that strat is if you're already right down the back, is to come in again and again until the safety car is ready to get going again, just to make sure you have the freshest possible tyres. But I think some of those guys, Higginson was one, starting off the back, he wants to put a charge in, so he'll benefit from having fresh, basically new tyres from the restart. As will Cox, he's got a bit of recovery to do, as will Murrell, as will Ben Hall. They're all drivers that were a lot higher than they're currently sitting, and definitely I think higher than they finished in that last race, so they've got a bit of a charge off now.
Yeah, so here we go. So yes, you said Higginson, who's here in 22nd, Murrell, Hall and Daniel Cox are the ones that came in after Luke Newing. Now, in Higginson's case, he's actually gone, he's put the hard tyre on, so that's
I don't think so.
To me it looks like, just from that angle, it looked more yellow than it did white. And he's been a pioneer of the soft tyres so far tonight. So I don't know.
I think at this point, he's. Yeah, I know. I say my end, it definitely wants to go soft tyre. I'd be very surprised if we went to a hard tyre, basically because we all saw in the chat how proud he was of getting the softs through the first race.
It's more yellow on the side than it is white, Rody, from where I'm sitting.
I mean,
we'll see. So yeah, there's hard tyre.
I'm pretty sure he's going to be on. I'm pretty sure all the guys at the back are going to be on softs. He wouldn't jump on hard at this point.
No, he wouldn't. But it's a bit strange. It's a bit strange. It just looked, from the angle I was looking at, it looked more yellow than it did white. I mean, I could take your word for it. I'm sure it probably is a soft tyre, but just from the camera angle, it looked a bit strange. Okay, looks like we are.
Yep.
We're going back to green this time around. For Foley's got control of the field here, the end of lap 4. So 3-lap safety car period. Pick up all the debris. Safety car hasn't quite escaped back to the lane yet here. So I'm hoping this is not going to be a false start situation. If it is, no, it's definitely a green flag situation, and we are underway again here as Foley controlled the restart all the way down to the line, and that's allowed Smith to get onto the back of Stenberg here and threaten down here. But also what's going on behind, there's plenty of action right behind as well, with Tara seizing through to position number 5 on green, or actually defending position number 5 from green. More mirrors going flying. Igmanis with his elbows out. Collins with his elbows out. Plenty of action going on up and down the field.
Yeah, one thing that restarts are really impacting is the hard tyre runners, because as we remember from Kurt Stenberg in round 4, he's mentioned how hard it is to get the hards up to operating temperature in the first few laps. So these guys are going to be struggling. It's why Tara backed into the first corner. They've had no temperature in the rears at all. And he's still trying to get rear temperature out of that car. Now you can still see it swirling around. Whereas all the guys behind him, a lot of guys behind him are going to be up there on soft tyres. They'll be basically switched on, ready to go as soon as the green flag is dropped. They've all got a charge on, and they have to try and make something of this now before their tyres fall off. So
that's right.
Tara is very much going to be corking the bottle until his tyres warm up.
Oh, Smith having a look down the inside here at Stenberg at the second to last corner, and Stenberg himself had to go super deep under brakes to try and hold the position there, because Foley is, as you said, he's trying to check out here on that soft tyre and build a little bit of a margin. And then you've got Walker, who's on the hard tyre, definitely looking for things. Marnus was heading for the grass there. Don't know what he was on about, but he had a bit of a moment in the rear of the shot there as well. Up to turn number 1 again for the next time of asking. Devonish setting the fastest lap of the race that time around, and here he comes down the inside of green at turn number 1. So he's made 7 spots, on the first lap here. He just lost that spot back to green then with a beautiful over and under treatment at 1, 2 and 3. But now on the drive here, a bit of fair old whack into the driver's side of the car there as one car jumped sideways and one car jumped on the pedal.
Yeah, so similar thing here. Green's out there on the hard compound, whereas the guys around him are on soft. So he's trying to get the car warmed up as well. He's very much, I think, adopted the strategy that he's seen from the leaders, and he's pretty close enough to try and do something with that. But yeah, same sort of thing is he's trying to get the strategy in, and Devonish is one who was out there on the hards in races 1, and he is out there on the softs now, so he's trying to make something of that. That's
right. Well, then you've got Green, who is coming under fire from McManus here as well. Weddings had a really good start to restart here, and so too is Ross. They've moved up some positions here. There goes Igmanis down the inside at turn number 11, and then Wedding has moved up 11 spots, so he started 20th up to 11. So he's good. Did they go the soft tyre strat here as well? Did Pixel go the soft tyre strat?
Yeah, Pixel's on. Yeah, at the very least Lewis is on softs. Let me have a quick look. Yeah, they are both on softs.
So this has played into their hands quite well as well now too, the early going, and they've been able to just put on the soft tyre and hope for an early safety car as Green exits stage left going down into turn number 1. There might have been a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact between Igmanis and Green there. That spills the Autobahn entry wide, and that gives another spot to Wedding. So up to 12th now, up 12 spots, up to 8th. How's his teammate looking? His teammate's a couple of positions further down, but is still trucking along quite nicely in 11th. There he is with Aidan Williams climbing all over his rear, having fallen down the order after. He was down to 7th, I think, after the incident at turn 6 on the opening lap, but has fallen further since.
Yeah, he's doing what he can. I think he's one of the ones out there on the hard tyre, which is really struggling at this point, because the optimum window for the hard tyres to come in isn't going to come until probably like lap 11 or lap 12 at this point, given the nullifying period, the nullifying effect of the safety car on tyre wear. He's going to come into it. He's going to come back into it right at the back end of this race. He needs to hold on until that point happens.
Yep, certainly does. So here we go, on board the high shot here through turn number 12. This is where the elevation changes. You drive out of sort of like the valley up to the flat plane of the front straight, and then there's this hump in the front straight heading up the hill into turn number 1. So it starts to kick up right here, and then it flattens out again a little bit, and then you're on the brakes fairly early, around 150 metre board, if not maybe a touch earlier, because you want to pinch that apex there nicely at turn 1, turn 2, and flow the car out and get it ready for turn 3. So if you're Williams, you're chasing Ross pretty hard at the moment and using up all the hard tyre you've got underneath you. It probably should be starting to come into its own in the next few moments, I think, probably the next lap or two, and then we'll really start to see the pace that these hard tyre guys have. Out in front, so Foley still leads, but Stenberg is getting ever closer. Smith hasn't been able to stick with Stenberg here. There'll be a change for position down here at turn number 11 as Foley's PBF Camaro wags the dog a bit. Lee closes the door, leaves a bit of margin. That's going to allow Smith to catch back up a little bit, so he made some ground there. Foley's on the wrong side here, and they're both checking up. Smith's now right there, so they're going to be an interesting battle now down into turn number 1 for the lead of this race. And Smith, unfortunately, is boxed in here, so he just needs to push Foley along and hope the gap emerges. There it is. Stenberg had to concede back into third place. Now Smith down the inside at turn 1. He's got the lock stops on. Did he get into Foley? I think he might have got into the back of the 074.
That's entirely possible. If it was, it would have been not much, but all you needed was not much at that point. The cars would have been grip limited pretty excessively there. So yeah, he's managed to hold on to second. Foley's dropped to 5th there, and with the pace he's pulling, he's going to struggle to try and get back up through the field. And yeah, potentially something in it, but at this point we're pushing on. So Smith is going to try and have a look now at Stenberg. He's had the pace, but he's been able to take advantage of the fact that Stenberg was stuck too wide with Foley for the last 2 corners, and that's the slowest way easily to go, comfortably slower through those corners. Doesn't have the problem now. Stenberg's got the room to go all by himself. He's now on a hard tyre that's starting to come into its main operating window, as opposed to Smith, who's out there on the softs, and even with the safety car, they're going to start to feel a little bit second-hand as he keeps pushing along.
Here's the replay at turn number 1. Yeah, a little bit of contact. Smith was in a little bit deep. Foley tried to move over to take the corner, and there was no room there, so there's a little bit of contact. Not sure how that one will be adjudged, but yeah, definitely a bit of contact there that sent both cars essentially off the road, and I think Devonish was in the back of the shot. He went off all on his own, which took him out of contention. So Stenberg back to the lead of the motor race, and leaving Ryan Smith now to defend from Wayne Walker, who's firmly down the inside at turn number 1. That's done. So now it's probably going to be a straight fight between the Camaro of Stenberg and the Mustang of Walker. Now, Walker took the opening race win. He's on the hards, same as Stenberg is. There's a little bit of panel exchange there between Smith and Walker as well. And then Turra is the next one in the queue in 4th. And he's now got a big head of speed coming through turn number 5, almost ranged right up onto the back of Smith, who has to go defensive, as you can see there, down into turn number 6. And look, Turris is going to clean drive. Ooh, I was about to say, he's going to clean drive right around the outside. He's clean driven right around the outside of 6 and 7. And a beautiful move into turn number 8. And they're still exchanging panels on the run through 8 and 9.
Yeah, I think what might have started that was, Turra was looking pretty close to crossing the white lineup points there through. Did he get a better run? But the question will be, how much of the runoff did he use to do it? And that's probably what's gotten a bit under Ryan Smith's spot at Foley off in the background as well. He's dropped spots now to Will Devonish and Lewis Wedding, and is actually just lost spots, I think, there to Rory Collins as well. But yeah, that'll be what's heating up things between Ryan Smith and Noah Turra right now. But at this stage right now, Turra is through. He's going to try and maybe do something about the cars in front, but he's still got Smith right behind him, and Will Devonish isn't too far behind either.
Certainly is. A bit of locking going on there as well. We'll go and have a quick look at this replay here of what happened with going right around the outside at turn number 6. So here we go. So Turra's so far back at the beginning of this lap here, and then closes up massively through turn 5. Now watch this. You do not see this move pulled. So Smith defensive line, Turra all the way around the outside, and doesn't quite keep it in bounds. Smith gave him a bit of room to come back on, and then there was this little panel exchange there going up to 7 to 8. That was okay. Then Turra got a bit loose, and Smith had to react a bit to it there, and I don't think there's probably much you could say apart from they were racing pretty hard at that point, and I don't think one driver was overly at fault for making the contact.
Yeah, I will say it has continued on as well while you're in the replay. There's been another bit of an exchange down there. Not quite the same, but
they've dropped spots as a result.
Yes, yeah. Smith was throwing out the bus big time on Devonish and Turra in the end. He just couldn't quite hold the pair of them off, but Devonish managed to slip through in all the chaos, and Turra still stuck behind him. But what this has done as well is brought Lewis Wedding up in his train as well. Foley, as a note as well, has dropped right back now. He's actually now not far off the clutches of Tim Redmond and Adam Williams.
Yep. So they've definitely dropped down the order there. So Foley's soft tyres, they are unfortunately crying enough. So Wedding now up into 6th place there. Then there's Foley. And Williams, Redmond sideways, right out close, really sent it, hardcore sent it round the outside of turn number 2. Took Williams almost by surprise there, I would have thought. And manages to, is he going to be on the outside here? Will he have enough room to sweep in for turn 5? Nope, he has to leave some room for the 33. And now he'll get that pass consolidated, Willie, at 6. They'll have to leave each other some room here. Good driving. Actually, Tim leaves plenty of room there. And Williams actually, by virtue of going a bit too deep at 6, has to give ground and comes back on it in 9th place. And Collins, the next one in the queue behind them. And as you said, Foley has sort of has dropped back towards Tim, who's now going to set out in pursuit of him. And then Ross, Callahan and Igmanis, who was a bit further up the order earlier on in the race, having to move his way forward too. Battle in front, Rhodey, is starting to become interesting. 1 second the margin. It was I'm just trying to read the math here just to make sure I can squint on my eyes on my screen and see it. It was a 10th difference in favour of Walker last time around lap time wise. There's only 3 laps remaining, and if it's going to be a 10th a lap, it's not going to be enough. So Walker needs to take some big chunks out this lap, really close the margin down, and hope that he's in a spot to strike.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm just keeping an eye on that battle over 4th as well. But yeah, he is starting to close up now, Walker. It's a big case of how much Stenberg took out of his tyre early on and where the ultimate pace is, because. Yeah, we're interesting to see how much of qualifying was actually there. And granted, this isn't qualifying, this is race pace. This is with used tyres, this is with used hard. I'm pretty sure it was that with qualifying on the softs.
Oh, so, sorry, there's a bit more argy-bargy. So the panel exchange between Noah Tara and Smith has continued as Wedding got through, and then Tara tried to follow him, and there was a bit more exchange. And now Foley is probably might be the next victim to rub panels with the 60 if he's not too careful. As Smith is sideways almost coming off of turn number 11, and that's going to check everybody up from 6th on back to about 10th as they all come onto the front straight. Walker a 10th quicker again than Stenberg last time around, the margin not shrinking as quickly as he needs it to. So there's the battle for 6th on back. There's Wedding, who's heading Noah Tara at the moment, while we watch Foley have a look on some pretty worn soft tyres go against Smith on some equally as worn soft tyres. Is this whole group on soft tyres, Rhodey?
Everyone except for Noah Tara.
So except for Noah.
In this train of 5. Wedding managed to get through off conserving his softs, but he's going to be feeling a little bit gone at this point, so he's trying to do what he can before the tyres really disappear. But yeah, Smith is out there on softs, Foley's out there on softs, and Redmond is also out there on softs.
Yep. Oh, it's nearly 3 wide at some stage going back into the corner here as well. Redmond got his elbows out here as well against Aidan Williams, and looks like he's held that one. Right, back to the head of the motor race. 0.8 of a second is the margin. It's come down a little bit. It's not coming down at any great rate here as we start the final lap. So Stenberg's just found another gear here just to keep Walker at bay. What's the margin this time around? It's not a lot. It hasn't decreased by much more. It's down to 0.6. So it's still a little bit of time for Walker to find. He's got to find. Where's his stronger roadie? I'm just trying to work it out here. They're evenly matched across all sectors. He made most of his time last time around the final sector, but that's not going to get it done.
Yeah, it's the difference of lines. For example, I saw just watching through the first couple of corners, Stenberg a lot more flowing, right, sort of swinging the car around the corners as opposed to Walker, very much driving it straight down the middle of the track, just trying to take the shortest route between point A and point B. A little bit of a time pickup for Walker. It was 0.6 of the line. It's now somewhere in the region of 4.5 tenths. But it's not going to be enough unless he's going to be in a position to put a real big dive on, probably at the second last corner. That's going to be his only opportunity from here. He's still not close enough. He's down to 4 tenths now, but it's a visible gap, but it's not quite small enough yet.
No, needed another lap. Needed that safety car to go for like a lap less, because that would have probably given him enough time to close that margin down. Oh, a little lock up for Stenberg. It's not over and done with yet. No, don't count this one out. There's some contact and some panel exchange, so a late mistake from Stenberg could spell the end for another race win, and it's going to do it. So that, or is it a drag race to the line? We've had this before, and who's it go to? It goes to Walker. Walker by 0.019 of a second gets the win in a last-minute little exchange. So we thought it was over and done with. We thought he didn't have the margin, and Stenberg just bobbled it at the last couple, the second last corner. Walker was right there, and Stenny rightfully tried to move over to make it difficult for him, but he had to leave the room, and Walker stayed with it, and they had to fight it to the lines, and that's one of the closest finishes we've had for a win in ASR history, I'd say, in Supercars. What a last couple of corners.
Yeah, that was. I didn't think it was close enough, and in the end, it was less about what Walker did, although he drove his heart out there. It was more that he just managed to get into the fringe of the conscious of one Kurt Stenberg and just put him off just that little bit, just a little bit, that little bit wide, and that opened the door. He had to very much put his foot straight in that door as soon as that door was open, though, because Stenberg was trying his best to close it. But that's the thing. There was just an overlap there. There was the smallest overlap, but it was physical, which meant that he couldn't come across. He couldn't close off the opportunity down the inside. He had to leave room, or some sort of room for Walker. In the end, Walker had to make sure he made it to the last corner fine, and he very nearly threw it away because Stenberg did manage to get a slightly better run, but it just wasn't enough. If the straight was longer, if the finishing line was further down the straight, maybe a different story. But with where the finishing line is, Walker got lucky there.
Yeah, he absolutely did. So Devonish managed to get through to third, Turra to fourth, Foley actually to fifth, and Smith to sixth. So then you got Redmond seventh, Williams 8th, Egmanis to 9th, and Ross got to 10th. So something happened to Lewis Wedding during all of that one because he's finished 14th. Then you had Callahan, Newing, and Higginson. And then Wedding, Hall, Green, Burko, Collins, who also faded in that one too, Darren Lockwood, Scott Murrell. And then everybody finished, so the last five, Knight, Thrower, Kiddis, Cox, and Warwick. I still want to go back. I actually was going to wind the replay back, Brady. I want to have another look at that finish because that's it's one of the closest ones we've probably seen in ASR history, and we'll probably just go on board probably with Wayne Walker, I think, from an onboard point of view, and have a look at just exactly sort of how that sort of transpired from his point of view. When we eventually wind the footage back. So we're going to probably have to do this one from the roof cam, just so you can sort of roughly see what was happening. So we will cut to that replay now. We do have that replay ready to go. So we will bring it up for you. So this is the run to the final corner, or to the second to last corner. So you see the margin here. At this point in time, it's Stenberg's race. There's the mistake. Big lockup. Walker comes back in, and a little bit of the contact there is like, you know what, I'm here. You have to allow me some room. He edges up in front at that point there, leaves the room. As the camera pans across the shot, you can't even see the margin for Stenberg's car. It's just right there. So because of the width of these cars, very difficult to see where Stenberg was relative to Walker. If we wind it back a little bit more and we actually change to Stenberg, you can see here it is coming to the line, and that's the margin at the motor race. It's basically the front little part of the splitter against Wayne Walker. There it is there. Absolutely nothing. What a finish!
Yeah. Like I was just thinking in my head to clarify. That's not the closest. There's definitely the closest finish we've had for a win, or up there
for a win.
Not the closest because we saw a dead heat last week over 17th. But yeah, like especially for how that race played out, for it to come down to that's the sort of racing I think you want to be having. And yeah, that was all up. That was a pretty good night. Only the one safety car as well, which was very good running by the guys.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. There's been a great display tonight, just of some wheel-to-wheel racing. So we saw it in race 2 with Foley and Stenny going toe-to-toe, and we saw it just there in the last couple of corners as well, that drivers can run side by side. And we've got the drivers in the chat that have taken the 3 race victories between us. So we'll get to them in just a second while Rody goes and gathers up a couple of other drivers that he would like to have a little bit of a chat with. So while you're doing that, Rady, I might just grab both of our drivers that are here at the moment. So for the round overall, it's going to be, I think Stenny will actually just have the round points overall by virtue of the slightly better finishing positions overall. So that's who we will start with. And just give me a few moments to organise a couple of things here, and we will be underway. So apart from that, Wait to see who else you can round up, Brady, because there's definitely a few stories in there that we'd like to bring up for this one. But we start with Kurt Stenberg, who's taken one of the race wins tonight. But by virtue of having the slightly better overall results, you will walk away with the most amount of points for the round. But you had to earn it in a couple of spots there. Foley made you earn it, and Walker was definitely closing the margin down to you in that last race, and you definitely had to pull out all the stops. Unfortunately, just with a slight mistake at the second last corner.
Yeah, pretty angry about that one. Car's been shocking under brakes all night, and it caught me out in the first race, and it caught me out there. So just struggled for tyre temp on the hard tyre. So yeah, not happy with the mistake, but overall pretty happy with the night. We didn't have a great first race, honestly, and we got caught up in things, but we made some setup changes, and race 2 went as bad as perfectly as you could have it go. And I knew that Foley was going to be hard to race there, being that he still had soft tyres, but I knew that eventually the tyres were going to start to go. So still had a bit better extra drive than me there at the end. And yeah, I managed to get it done eventually. So, and then, yeah, Wayne, it's good racing anyway. So it's disappointing to not win after leading the whole race. But hey, if it's a good race, then you kind of bit happier about it, I guess.
Yep, I would agree with your sentiment in that one there. It's hard to not walk away with a win after leading a good chunk of that third race. And you're right, your race 1 definitely didn't go according to plan for you. You came 4th in that one. In race 2, though, this is something that Brody and I both remarked on, that it was a repeat of Winton in that sort of top half inversion race. Your starts have been really, really good this year, and you put that to good effect. And by picking up 4 or 5 spots on lap 1, you basically set the scene for your whole entire second race.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. That was the plan. Like, I knew that if I was going to have a good result at this round after that first race, I knew I needed a good start. So I did a bit of practice, and yeah, it's just I know that the faster guys are behind me. On both races, I've had the faster guys behind me because I have had a poor first race by virtue of just things that have happened. And I know you've got to maximize that. Like, you're the first car that's quicker than all the cars in front of you. So it's like, got to get on that and do it before they do. So I made sure to make a good effort of that in both races. And look, it's turned both rounds around. So I've gone from, not that I had bad results in both races, both first races at those rounds, but it's gone from being, you come third all night to actually, like, you can have one good race and then work it up from there. So that race is very important, and I've made that these sprint rounds, that is probably the most important race, to make sure that you can pass people and not get caught up in anything.
That's right.
It's not easy to do.
Yeah,
especially when guys are running softs. Like, that's a big thing as well tonight, is the strategy on tyres was 9-ball either way. And it's actually really good to see that it wasn't just one strategy that was winning out above the others. There was other options for people.
Yeah, no, I agree with you as well. Talk to us about your battle with Foley in race 2. That battle went on for the better part of 2/3 of a lap, door handle to door handle. Both of you, I know, have a high respect for each other from the times that you've spent on track over the course of the last several seasons. It's been a while since the two of you went toe-to-toe. How did you find it?
Yeah, it was good. I haven't raced Foley for ages, and I've never had a run-in with him that I know of. So, yeah, it was good, hard, respectful racing. I knew I didn't have to rush the pass. I knew I had 3 laps, so it was kind of like, well, I'm not going to do anything silly, and he's kind of didn't do anything silly trying to defend it, because he kind of obviously was thinking about the gap behind as well. But you're going to give it everything to try and win, especially when you're in that situation. So, no, it was great. And then I got to race him again in the second race there at the start.
No, you agree. You both started on the front row. Both had pretty equally good reaction times, and just a slightly better launch for Foley with the softer tyres, which just stopped you back into position 2 for that one in the early going. Now, importantly, it is a short turnaround, 2 weeks instead of 3 for the next race. Home race for you coming up.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. I think that's going to be a very interesting race for strategy. I need to look at, it's a shorter pit lane than some of the other 2 race rounds we've had, and hard track on tyres. I think that's going to be the first. Look, in those rate formats so far this year, I've run a fuel saving strategy. I think this is the first time where I actually have to think about what the go with tyres is, and if we can play something different. So it's never been the world's greatest track for me, even though it's my home track, but it's always great to race on, so I'm keen to get back there. It'll be good.
I didn't want to jinx it. So you've said yourself there that it's not one of the ones that you've been a fan of, but we'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Congratulations on achieving the most points possible for the round.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
All right, Roddy, what we're going to do now is we might flip this one over to you. Who are you going to grab first to have a chat with?
Well, probably grab the other race winner first, and I'll drag the other two guys up in here, but we'll grab them later. But Wayne Walker, that was a pretty good run, all things considered. You picked up the 2 wins tonight, not quite maximum points, but not far off it. How were things from where you were sitting?
Yeah, after last round, that was like a bit of redemption. Yeah, last round was a complete nightmare for me, and I would also like to say sorry to anyone that I stuffed up last round with the restarts as well. Yeah, that was just a big stuff up on my behalf. But yeah, this round, I sort of worked a bit more on what tyres I should run. And it was sort of a last minute thing to sort of switch to the hards. And yeah, the night went pretty well. The second race, I'm still struggling a bit, sort of getting through the slower cars. Stenberg sort of gets through them really quick, and I've got to sort of work on trying to get through them a bit quicker. Start a bit higher in the third race, but yeah, it was a good night overall.
Absolutely. Well, like you answer more or less answered what I was going to next ask you about, which was race 2. So we're going to race 3. Starting out of 5th, bit of work to do considering that Stenberg started off pole. Take us through those last few laps as you were trying to chase him down, trying to do what you could with the hard tyres, and then coming into those last few corners.
Yeah, just the last sort of half a dozen laps, I was just pushing pretty much qualifiers every lap to try and sort of chip away at the lead, and sort of got it down under a second. I think going into the last lap, I think it was about 0.6 of a second, and yeah, throughout the lap I was slowly chipping away again, and second last corner, I saw him go in a bit deep and run wide, so I tried to turn in tight and get up the inside to have the inside for the last corner, and yeah, it paid off.
Absolutely. Well, great work tonight. Not the most points to take away from tonight, but second best and the only multiple race winner tonight. Just quickly, what's your thoughts coming into Barbagallo in 2 weeks' time?
Yeah, I like the track. I've never driven it on this sim, so I'm not sure sort of what to expect. Like layout, whether it'll be the same sort of layout as other sims, like ripple strips being different and things like that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But I do like that track though.
Absolutely. Well, great work by yourself tonight, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time for Barbagallo.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so we've just had first and second for the night, and Nether's done a quick bit of back of the notebook math there to determine that third place for the round with a second and a pair of fourths is Noah Turra. So Noah, a bit of a challenge for you in tonight's racing, especially towards the end where you were one of the few holdouts, it seems, on the hard tyre compared to the soft runners around you. But how'd tonight go for you?
Yeah, pretty good. Definitely one of my better nights. Just kind of surprised myself with the pace a bit. Didn't quite have the same amount as Wayne, but I was quite happy with it, and I was able to keep it pretty consistent. So yeah, that this round kind of went pretty well for me, all things considered.
Yeah, so just as the season's looking, and I know I've made mention to it in the past, but you've very much sort of taken over the mantle as CRE's fastest driver with sort of Will losing a little bit of pace here and there. What's it like now to take the challenge to last year's series champion?
I mean, not too different from other years. I think I've just, I've been able to adapt to the car pretty well, but I don't think that there's not that much of a gap between us. I think I've just gotten lucky on a few occasions, to be honest, because his race pace is definitely on mine, and his quali pace is usually a bit better when he gets it together. So I don't think I'm clear cut the like first man in CRE just yet, but it's been good fighting him.
Absolutely. Well, we sort of looked at the picture of tonight's racing, a second and pair of fourths. You didn't leave the top 5 all night. This is one of your 2 home tracks. Is your preference with the Bend, or is it more with the Adelaide Street circuit?
As much as I like driving the Bend, it's a good challenge. I definitely prefer Adelaide. It's, hosted Formula One for a number of years and is just like one of the best street tracks in the world. And I love going through it, especially the Center S. Like, it's just a good track all round.
Alrighty. Well, you're talking about Walker, and as things sit on the points table now, you are only 40 odd points behind him going into the next round at Barbagallo. What's your thoughts on Barbagallo?
Yeah, it's not my best track. I tend to struggle a bit there, but if I can just keep my nose clean and finish in like the top 5, top 6 or every race, then I think I'll be able to do all right. And just just keep my nose clean. Last time I was getting a bit adventurous, and I've messed it up for myself. So I think I'll just have to be a bit more passive now because it's not my best track.
Absolutely. Well, great work tonight, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time at Barbagallo.
Yep, thank you.
Alrighty, we'll jump on now to Brenton Foley, who is the only other driver tonight to have picked up a second place, with Will just picking up the pair of thirds. So, Foley, a bit of a topsy-turvy night for you, but you did what you needed to in the first race to get yourself onto the pole for race 2.
Oh, I didn't exactly plan on finishing 13th, but it worked out pretty well.
Fair enough. Well, so it wasn't necessarily a plan. You just kind of ended up there as a result. But as things went from there, you had a bit of a challenge with the hard tyre runners in 2 and 3, and just them being able to maintain the pace a little better than you were on the softs. But still a second and a fifth. That's definitely your best result for the season. What was the challenge like?
Oh, it's well known that I've struggled in the past with hard tyres, and I gave it a go in practice, and they just weren't working for me. So I did realise that the softs would last, but it would be a struggle towards the end. So thought I'd roll the dice, and with that second race, I really banked on the faster guys getting stuck for a little bit and hoping that I could take off, and putting in sort of quality laps with no mistakes, which I managed to do. But I just needed that little bit more, but it was an awesome battle.
Absolutely. Well, you did great work in the end to do your best to take it to Kurt Stenberg in race 2 and keep up with the guys in race number 3. What's your thoughts going into the next round at Barbagallo?
I like Barbagallo, but it's been pretty clear that I've struggled with these cars and had my fair share of issues, hardware-wise and things like that. Just the goal is just have a clean round and top 10 finishes, and I'd be happy with that.
Absolutely. Well, great work tonight, Foley, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time at Barbagallo.
Thanks.
And finally, we've got Ryan Smith, who was the best performing of the SES rostrum with a very, very nicely tied up set of 6th place finishes in all 3 races. Ryan, how was your night?
I don't know. It started off with practice. I was kind of average, and then got Higo into the call, and he gave us a nice little setup, and it was very lovely. Just had very good pace, and the tire wear wasn't horrible, but towards the end of the race, obviously, the softs kind of fell off. But yeah, no, Higo gave us a good setup and was able to get us to Big Dane P6 award. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're talking about the Big Dane Awards. You have just got the one podium this year, being in race 2 at Winton, but the reverse grid seemed to very much help you out, but also very much a bit of a turn of pace. It's your first time back into the top 10 since at Winton, and you reckon there's going to be a bit of swing of pace going into the rest of the season?
Honestly, I don't know, because obviously last week in Dev Series, I was struggling to fight back through after dropping off race 1. with 7th being my best result last week in Dev. But yeah, 3 6th places here. I don't know. It's confusing me, but I guess I'm just gelling with these Gen 3 cars right now, and their setup tonight was just beautiful.
Absolutely. Well, you've done what you needed to, done a pretty good job tonight, and you've actually managed to sneak up into the top 10 in points as a result, displacing a few other drivers in the process. You might actually be, no, you're not. You're the second fastest or second best SES driver in points. It's just Anthony Green. You've got to try and top now. But lastly, Ryan, what's your thoughts going into Barbagallo?
I mean, obviously Dev Series next week. Just looking to get a good result there, make up for what happened at the Bend, improve. Because yeah, bottom end of the top 10. If we're looking at for the championship, either of them, teams or drivers, it's gonna need to improve from that. And then in main game, I guess just come in, use what I learned from Dev Series about where to overtake. Practice throughout the week, and then hopefully get a good result there too.
Absolutely. Well, great work tonight, Ryan, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time for Supercars at Barbagallo.
Thank you. Bye.
Nice quick drop out of the box there for Ryan, and that's been the interviews for round number 4.
Thank you very much, Rody. Yep, it's not a bad crew to bring in for that one, and you had a conversation there with Ryan Smith, who mentioned something about teams, and that just got me thinking. I got a funny feeling that it probably wouldn't be the Sideways Esport guys probably wouldn't be too far off jumping up into the top of the point standings. And in fact, as I look at it right now, CRE have still got it, but they have jumped over the SES guys have jumped over the top of Pixel, who've had a bit of a shocker tonight. So that has changed the complexity of the points for the team's championship as it stands right now. But still a long way to go, and still a long way to go in this year's championship. So don't forget the development series next week on the Loose Sim Network channel from Barbagallo, and we will follow with round 5 of Supercars in a couple of weeks from now, 2 weeks to be precise, from Barbagallo as well. So until next time, everyone, please drive safely, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the 5th round of the championship. Bye for now.